Chapter 449. Boom! At the foot of the Twin Cities Pass, millions of soldiers and 6 god emperors had the same expression on their faces. It was a kind of fear and dullness that was beyond shock. At this moment, high up in the sky, Ling Xiao suddenly raised his hands, and the 9 pillars of heaven lifted up the mountain. Then, he threw it toward the Twin Cities Pass. Boom! The ear-piercing sound of the wind was like the wind from the 9 serenities hell. In the majestic city, countless soldiers of the great Zhou dynasty raised their heads and looked at the horrifying mountain falling from the sky. For a moment they forgot to run away. The 2 mountains here were originally set up by Emperor Zhou several decades ago. The purpose was naturally to guard against the unexpected. But now, one of them was swallowed by the demonic dragon, and the other one was thrown toward them by a young man? Damn! What happened to this world? Where did these 2 monsters come from? Run! Run! No! I don't want to die! Desperate roars resounded in the sky. But how could the speed of the falling mountain be comparable to that of an ordinary person? Even Zhou Hui was swallowed by the endless darkness as soon as the spiritual radiance around his body lit up. In his hand, a spiritual talisman flickered with dense mist, and his figure disappeared from the spot. The mountain fell, and the majestic city was destroyed. The great Zhou dynasty could not be saved. Boom! A cloud of dust rose up and completely covered the sky. Heaven and earth suddenly fell into a deathly silence, and the originally despairing cries of alarm were instantly annihilated. Ning Tiance raised his eyebrows slightly, and his eyes were filled with shock. In the end, he still underestimated the ruthlessness of this little brother. He killed nearly 100,000 soldiers with one mountain. Although, on the battlefield, regardless of life or death, there was no good or evil. But it was very inexplicable. Looking at the indifference on Ling Zhao's face, Ning Tiance's heart was filled with coldness. Back then, he was demoted to the northern region from the imperial capital, and he was disheartened. Only by killing enemies on the battlefield could he feel the meaning of life. During those years, his unsheathed green saber shocked the heavens and broke through 1,000 barriers with a smile. His green saber shattered the clouds, but he could not let go of his worries. He looked at the blazing sun and rode alone. He did not care about life or death. After 10 years of fighting, Ning Tiance thought his heart was as firm as ice. But today he understood. Compared to the young man in front of him, he was still lacking in obsession. It must be the love of 3 lifetimes or the hatred of 10,000 years that made him so indifferent to the common people. Little brother Xiao, what kind of secret is hidden in your heart? Congratulations, host. You have slaughtered 93,913 living beings, which fits the style of an antagonist. You have gained 50,000 antagonist points. Ling Zhao's face did not change at all despite the system's notification. He raised his head and glanced at Ning Tiance. The corner of his mouth curled up into an evil grin. Big brother. Brother. Xiao. To be honest, Ning Tiance felt a little strange when he looked at the handsome, firm and gentle face in front of him. 100,000 living beings were killed with a wave of his hand. This sin was not something that just anyone could bear. Especially for a 16 or 17-year-old youth, those with weak will or Dao heart would be easily disturbed by the resentment of those living beings, and it would give birth to inner demons that would be beyond redemption. After 10 years of fighting, Ning Tiance had seen countless soldiers who had just joined the army cry and break down after killing people. Some even lost their minds. But Ning Tiance also understood. Killing one person was a sin, but killing 100,000 people was the way of the king. At this moment, he could not see any emotion on Ling Zhao's face. Even his eyes were still gentle and clear like the sea of stars, revealing endless depth. Such temperament and means were extremely terrifying. Big brother, do you think I am too cruel? Ling Xiao lowered his head and looked at the army of 1 million soldiers below. At this moment, everyone's face was filled with awe. In just one day, this young man's ferocity had already shocked the hearts of the army. Little brother Shao, Ning Tiance did not know what to say. After all, he was the god of war and had killed countless people. But he had only killed the enemy and had never hurt the innocent. Even if the Zhou clan was guilty and deserved to be slaughtered, the soldiers of the great Zhou dynasty were innocent. He, Ning Tiance, had instigated the Zhou clan to rebel, not the whole world. Big brother, look how cruel this war is. Ling Xiao pointed at the city that was crushed by the mountain and the river of blood that was gradually seeping out. His tone was calm. But this kind of war happens every day in the western border. Today, I killed 100,000 people because they blocked my way. Every moment I am delayed here, countless people in the western border will die in the war. Ling Xiao raised his head and looked at the sky, revealing a painful expression. Little brother Xiao, you mean, what I want is for the western border to be unified and the world to be at peace. What I want to do is to realize this wish as soon as possible. This way more people will be spared from death in the war. Big brother, when I kill people, I am actually saving more people. After saying that, Ling Xiao no longer paid attention to Ning Tiance. He turned around and descended. At this moment, Ning Tiance's expression gradually became sluggish. Killing people is saving people. Every moment I am delayed, more people will die in the war? That's right. At this moment, Ning Tiance suddenly understood. It turns out that I am too soft-hearted. Little brother Shao is the one who truly understands and cares about the world. His Tao is not something that mortals can compare to. Boom! Suddenly, Ning Tiance's eyes were filled with killing intent. His aura shot up to the sky. His cultivation level was originally at the 3rd stage, but there were signs of a breakthrough. I will rest for a day. Tomorrow, I will enter the pass and destroy Cloud City. Ling Xiao said indifferently and disappeared. Realm, Heavenly Palace. Ling Xiao sat cross-legged and opened the system. He was shocked by the 150,000 villain points. Sure enough, the battlefield was the best place to gain experience. However, although the villain points increased, his luck points did not increase by much. This was the so-called, you can't have your cake and eat it. Add a point to the Xiantian ancient scripture. Buzz. A buzzing sound was heard. Above Ling Xiao's head a green light flowed. The Tao was formed naturally. 2 Tao shadows vaguely appeared in the sky. Each of them had their own form and their own divine power. Ling Xiao's cultivation level instantly rose from the 1st stage of the divine overlord realm to the 3rd stage. As for the Xiantian ancient scripture, it finally reached the jade clear level. At the same time, one of the 2 silhouettes above his head gradually solidified and materialized. Finally, it opened its eyes. Ling Xiao's eyes narrowed, but the corner of his lips curled up into a smile. A figure covered in celestial light stepped down from the sky and quietly stood in front of him. It was a figure that looked exactly like him. Even its cultivation level was the same as Ling Xiao's. More importantly, this celestial figure did not have a trace of demonic intent. It was a natural celestial aura. The purple chi void physique was born without filth or desire. It was a natural celestial being. Interesting, Ling Xiao's heart moved. The celestial figure disappeared on the spot and reappeared in the depths of the realm, where the sun and moon intersected. There, purple energy floated up and down, all of it converging into one body. Chapter 450. With this Taoist body, I can devour the spiritual aura of heaven and earth to cultivate. I should be able to break through to the Divine King realm soon. Also, Ling Xiao's face was gloomy. That Taoist body was equivalent to his second life. Even if his demonic body was killed one day, as long as his divine soul was not destroyed, he could be reborn. Also, the most mysterious thing about this immemorial Taoist body was that it could devour the spiritual aura of heaven and earth and fuse with the purple spiritual aura without limit. In other words, there was no limit to the cultivation of the Taoist body. Haha! Who is the demonic body? I have an innate Taoist body without filth or desire. I have the potential of an immortal. Who are you calling a demonic body? Your whole family is demonic body. In the end, Ling Xiao did not dare to devour the blood spirits of the 100,000 soldiers because of Ning Tian's presence. Instead, he quietly walked out of the realm in the middle of the night and stabbed the demonic saber into the ruins of the city. As the blood of the 100,000 remnant souls were devoured, the strange ripple in the immemorial demonic saber became stronger. It would not be long before the soul of the demonic saber completely awakened. One day passed in the blink of an eye. On the second day, the army of 1,000,000 soldiers set out again. They went around the ruins of the city and headed toward the capital of Great Zhou. Shuangshan City was the last pass of the Great Zhou dynasty. As the army advanced, there was nothing to stop them. Soon, the silhouette of the majestic imperial city appeared in Ling Xiao's sight. A gloomy smile finally appeared on the young man's face. Beside him, Ning Tiance and Xiao Yunli stood respectfully on both sides. Big brother, we can avenge sister-in-law today. Ning Tiance's face was gloomy. To him, Zhou Minran was a dream and a pain. Although this woman had schemed against him for 10 years, her fate was not in his control. Emperor Zhou, you deserve to die. Great Zhou's imperial palace. Emperor Zhou looked down at his officials with cold eyes. The news of Shuangshan City's destruction had already spread. 200,000 soldiers of Great Zhou died in this battle. This was a fatal blow to the entire Great Zhou. But now, Emperor Zhou could not care too much. Even if the other dynasties took the opportunity to make trouble for him, it was a matter of the future. If Yunfang City was destroyed today, Great Zhou's empire would be completely destroyed. Truth be told, at this moment, Zhou Huang was filled with regret. Ning Tiance, the war god of the Great Zhou, whom he had once trusted and relied on the most, had ultimately become his enemy. Report! Suddenly, a cry of surprise came from outside the hall. A royal guard in armor ran over in a panic and knelt on the ground with a plop. Emperor, Ning Tiance has led an army of 1,000,000 and is already 100 miles away from Cloud Fong City. What? In an instant, the expressions on the faces of all the ministers turned fearful. The 1,000,000-strong army had already arrived at the city. Even though Emperor Zhou had already activated the dynasty-protecting Grand Formation, a formation was like a layer of a tortoise's shell. So long as one persisted in smashing it, it would shatter sooner or later. At this moment they were like turtles in a jar. There were even a few less resolute people who were already secretly planning whether they should do something to curry favor with the new Great Zhou Emperor. The change of dynasties was fixed in history. From the looks of it, the Great Zhou dynasty's luck had run out. What should we do? It's over, it's over. My Great Zhou dynasty is finished. Hundreds of officials wept in grief. The court and the common people howled in grief. Shut up, all of you! Emperor Zhou roared furiously. The emperor's aura around him descended and almost overturned the entire Golden Hall. At this moment, the emperor of the Great Zhou dynasty was also a little flustered. However, he forced a calm expression on his face. Even though he had already expected this day to come. Facing the 1,000,000-strong army of the north, he was still at a loss. Why are you panicking? I have already sent a message to the Great Qin dynasty and the Great Qi dynasty to send reinforcements. They should be here soon. Besides, it's just Ning Tiance. Even if he brings an army of 1,000,000, what can he do? As long as we kill this traitor, the 1,000,000-strong army will collapse without a fight. You are wise, Emperor. The ministers bowed their heads, but they despised the Emperor of the Great Zhou dynasty in their hearts. What kind of king time is it, and you're still bragging? Collapse without a fight? Everyone in the Great Zhou dynasty knew that the generals of the north were loyal to Ning Tian's. Kill him? It would be even more difficult to appease the anger of the million-strong army. Moreover, taking the head of the enemy's general from the million-strong army was just bragging. The emperor gods of the Great Zhou dynasty were either dead or loyal. Currently, in the imperial capital, other than Emperor Zhou, the two commanders of the imperial guards, and personal steward Chu Dahai, there was only old minister Wang Taifu, who was nearing the end of his lifespan, and protector Duke Renzhong, who had long been idle at home, who were god emperors. The two commanders of the imperial guards were only second-stage emperor gods. If they left the city, they would definitely be killed. As for the old minister and the Lord Protector, boom! Just as the officials were feeling bitter and lonely, a loud sound came from above the Golden Hall. The entire Yunfang city seemed to tremble for a moment. Damn! It's here. Humph! Good Ning Tian's. I will kill you! Emperor Zhou roared and was about to walk out of the hall. Right at this moment, old Xiang, who'd been silent all this time, suddenly took a step forward and blocked Zhou Huang's path. Emperor! Old minister, you! Emperor Zhou narrowed his eyes and looked at old minister Wang Taifu, who was bowing down. Emperor! Now it's a matter of life and death for the Great Zhou dynasty. All of this is because you imprisoned Ning Tian's in Yunfang City. You! The entire imperial court was so silent that even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. Everyone looked at Wang Taifu with terrified gazes, their brows filled with doubt. Is this old man tired of living? Or does he want to rebel? Although Ning Tian's betrayed the dynasty because Emperor Zhou did not trust him in the first place, isn't he courting death by pushing the blame to the emperor? Emperor, Ning Tian's loyalty can be witnessed by the sun and moon. Now that he has betrayed the dynasty, I'm afraid he has resentment in his heart. During the 10 years he was trapped in the imperial capital, I have a good relationship with him. If you can put down your dragon face, perhaps I can be your mediator and ask him to repent. Wang Taifu sighed, and a wisp of determination appeared on his aged face. The dynasty was swaying in the wind and rain. The dragon face and the emperor's prestige were meaningless. If Emperor Zhou still cared about the dynasty, he should make a decision now. Of course, the reason why Wang Taifu dared to advise him like this was because he had a good understanding of Ning Tian's character. The war god of the kingdom was unparalleled in loyalty. If he wanted to rebel, he would not have abandoned the honor of the northern region and returned to the dynasty alone. Now that Zhou Minfu was dead and Emperor Zhou buried her carelessly, this war god's loyalty might have been completely shattered. But, in the end, he still had righteousness in his heart. As long as I can persuade him with reason and emotion, this disaster will be resolved. That's right. War god Ning is loyal to the country. Why would he rebel? He must have been instigated by the Xia dynasty. You are the backbone of the Great Zhou dynasty. Ning Tian's came from a humble background. He must be in awe of you. If we can resolve this chaos without sacrificing a single soldier, it will be a good fortune for the Great Zhou dynasty. Emperor! All the ministers bowed their heads and bowed to Emperor Zhou. Emperor Zhou's face was as gloomy as ice. Put down his dragon face? Since ancient times, which emperor of the dynasty would ask for forgiveness from his officials? He was very angry. But looking at the officials who bowed to him in an orderly manner, Emperor Zhou took a deep breath and a helpless look appeared in his eyes. Chapter 451. Old Prime Minister, you can go out of the city and tell Ning Tian's. If he retreats, I will let bygones be bygones and even he will still be the commander-in-chief of Great Zhou's army. Emperor Zhou sighed softly and his tone was slightly cold. He still needed time to wait for Great Qin and Great Qi's reinforcements. Although such actions were no different from inviting a wolf into one's house, the worst that could happen was that they would have to give up their land and cities. Moreover, that person was at the critical moment of his breakthrough. As long as he could take that step, Ning Tiance could be killed with a wave of his hand. Yes, Emperor. Wang Taifu's face was filled with joy. Although Emperor Zhou's words sounded tough, he was actually admitting defeat. Ning Tiance should be satisfied to be able to make the Emperor of Great Zhou take a step back. Let's go. Follow me to see that traitor. Emperor Zhou snorted and walked out of the palace. Behind him, Wang Taifu, Chu Dahai and the other officials followed closely. Below Yunfang City, Ling Xiao took the lead and stood in front of the army. Ning Tiance, Qiao Yunli and the other god emperors were one step behind with respect. At this moment, above Yunfang City, there was a sky-reaching golden formation. The Tao patterns on the formation flickered and a divine diagram appeared. Mountains, lakes, ancient trees and green palaces unfolded like a painting. Obviously, the formation in Shuangshan City could not be compared to it. Regarding array formations, Ling Xiao did not study too much. However, according to Ning Tiance, this formation was derived from Zhou clan's inheritance treasure, the monarch diagram of mountains and seas. This diagram was a high-grade Tao artifact. After being warmed by the dragon vein for hundreds of years, it became so powerful. Just now, Ling Xiao had ordered Hua to break the formation. As expected, that bastard did not manage to swallow it. It even vomited blood. After all, Hua was only a divine general. Even if its bloodline was terrifying and its talent was extraordinary, it was still too weak. Suddenly, several figures appeared on the city tower in the distance. The person in the lead was wearing a dragon robe and had a golden crown on his head. He looked majestic. He was the Emperor of Great Zhou, Zhou Qingcang. Beside him, there were 4 emperor gods and a few divine king experts. At this moment, they were looking at the million soldiers standing quietly at the foot of the city with a solemn expression. Brother Xiao, that's the great Zhou Emperor Zhou Qingcang. Ning Tiance walked to Ling Xiao and reminded him in a low voice. 5th grade Divine Emperor? Ling Xiao nodded and smiled. A mere 5th grade Divine Emperor was nothing to him. He was only very curious about the cultivation level of the mysterious expert that Chu Dahai spoke of. Big brother, are there only these god emperors left in the Zhou dynasty? On the surface, there are only these few people. However, rumor has it that forefather Zhou presides over the Zhou imperial palace. He is in seclusion all year round, so no one has seen him. However, someone did feel a powerful presence that awakens every few decades. Ning Tiance looked calm and didn't panic at all. Ling Xiao nodded with a smile. Emperor Zhou had a trump card, but so did he. However, at this moment, on the distant Cloud Fong City, a figure suddenly walked out of the golden matrix and slowly walked towards the two of them. It was an old man who looked like he was about to die. His silver hair was neatly combed to the back of his head. His blue official robe was neat and tidy. At first glance, one could tell that he was an upright and loyal person. Moreover, his aura had reached the 3rd grade Divine Emperor realm. With the old Prime Minister personally taking action, this chaos will be quelled. Yes. After all, the old Prime Minister is indebted to Ning Tiance for recognizing his worth. I heard that when Ning Tiance committed a capital crime, the old Prime Minister stood up for him and said that he was loyal, kind, and had the demeanor of a general. The old Prime Minister has been honest all his life. He is the benchmark in the hearts of countless students and cultivators in the great Zhou dynasty. Ning Tiance won't be so ungrateful. On the city wall, the ministers nodded and smiled. The panic on their faces dissipated. Hearing this, Emperor Zhou's expression didn't change. However, a glint of gloominess flashed across his eyes. Ning Tiance, do you really think that I will let you go? As long as you give up your military power, I will have 100,000 ways to kill you. Emperor Zhou had made up his mind. No matter how many people opposed him this time, as long as this chaos was quelled, he would definitely kill Ning Tiance. Looking at the old man descending from the sky, Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. However, the corners of his mouth curled up into a playful smile. At this moment, Ning Tiance's face inexplicably revealed a look of struggle. Then, under the horrified gazes of countless people, he bowed down to Wang Taifu. The old prime minister of the great Zhou dynasty, Wang Taifu, had been loyal and devoted all his life. Such a person was worthy of respect no matter where he was. Look! Ning Tiance bowed to the old prime minister. It's done. The ministers of the great Zhou dynasty immediately smiled. However, before they could finish their words, they were shocked to see that the old prime minister's body suddenly bent down. There was even an extra black long saber on his back. The entire world fell silent. Everyone looked at the young man in white who held the black saber and stabbed Wang Taifu through. Their eyes were filled with intense shock and fear. What the hell? Heartless? So cruel? This young man doesn't play by the rules. It was an eternal rule that the envoys should not be killed in a war between two dynasties. Otherwise, how could a mere 17-year-old young man kill the third-grade god emperor prime minister of the great Zhou dynasty so easily? Brother Xiao? Ning Tiance stood up and looked at Wang Taifu, who was bleeding from the corner of his mouth. His eyes were also filled with shock and disbelief. Brother, what happened to you? Ling Xiao looked confused. Spiritual light bloomed from his hand, and he slammed Wang Taifu to the ground with a palm strike. An enemy god emperor was courting death. Wouldn't it be a waste if he didn't kill him? I'm a villain. Do you expect me to listen to you talk about morality and ideals? Please, everyone's time is precious. What does a loyal and treacherous minister have to do with me? Those who block my path should be killed. Brother Xiao, the envoys should not be killed in a war between two armies. Ning Tiance swallowed his saliva and stopped talking. Although he knew that Ling Xiao's action was to take down the Cloud Fang city as soon as possible to fulfill his great wish and save the people of the western border. However, he felt that something was not right. Envoys? Who said he's an envoys? I only saw the killing intent in his eyes. Since he's an enemy god emperor, I thought he had evil intentions. F***ck. Wang Taifu, who was curled up on the ground, spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes rolled up and he died on the spot. I didn't even say anything and you killed me? Did I even have the chance to tell you my identity? I only looked at you twice. Is this the reason for you to kill me? F***ck. The pitiful pillar of the great Zhou Empire, a third-grade divine emperor expert, had never expected that his magnificent life would come to an end so suddenly. Ning Tiance frowned and thought for a moment. In the end, he felt that what Ling Xiao said was reasonable. Old Xiang must have come here to persuade him to surrender. After all, Ling Xiao and the others were from the Great Xia. Therefore, it was understandable that Old Xiang looked at him with killing intent. However, Old Xiang would never have imagined that Ling Xiao was the one who planned all this chaos. Ning Tiance, the war god of the north, was at most a sharp knife in his hand. Old Xiang, you've got the wrong identity. On the city wall, Emperor Zhou and the other officials looked at Old Xiang, who was lying on the ground and seemed to have died. Their faces were completely blank. Especially Emperor Zhou, a wisp of ferocity faintly flashed through his eyes. F***ck. I told you not to go. The great Zhou dynasty was already weak. Now it lost a third-grade god emperor for no reason. Old man, I think you really want the great Zhou dynasty to be destroyed. What should we do now? Old Xiang is dead. It seems that Ning Tiance is determined to rebel. Emperor! Why don't we surrender? The officials wailed and looked sad. Right at this moment, the sound of rushing wind could be heard from the distant sky. Chapter 452. Both Emperor Zhou and Ling Zhao's eyes turned cold when they heard the sound. Then, they turned to look in the direction of the sound of wind breaking. At this moment, a blood-colored torrent rolled over from the horizon. Endless blood energy shook the clouds and covered the sky, causing a sense of fear to emerge from the bottom of one's heart. Even the million-strong army below the city had a look of fear in their eyes when they saw the blood-red torrent. Great Qin Blood Dragon Guards. They were slightly different from the Great Zhou Golden Wolf Guards. Although there were not many of these Great Qin battle guards, they were all above Paoang. There was once an emperor who said that 10,000 blood dragons could fight against 1,000,000 soldiers. However, at this moment, Ling Zhao's eyes weren't on the 10,000 blood guards, but on the lady in silver armor at the head of the group. The bright silver armor accentuated her perfect figure, making her look even more tall and straight. Especially her straight legs, which were well-proportioned and slender, giving off an inexplicable sense of valiance. The woman's silver hair was tied behind her head, and there was a hint of world-weary laziness on her beautiful face. Her beauty was completely different from Yi Qinchan, Han Qinqiu, and the others. Looking at her, one could not see the wind, rain, dew, sunlight, or stars. There was only coldness, pity. It was extremely cold and gloomy and despair. It went deep into one's bones and inexplicably wanted to escape. It was as if there was only darkness in her world, and there was never a trace of light. The red cloak on her shoulders was like a sea of blood that wanted to annihilate all living things. Great Qin Empress, Qin Wushuang? Ling Xiao easily guessed the woman's identity. However, at this moment, there was clearly a strong sense of doubt on his face. It shouldn't be. Since she could sit on the throne of the Great Qin Empress in such a complicated way, this woman should not be without luck. There was a familiar aura, especially that silver hair and the gloom in her eyes. However, he could not remember where he had seen it before. It's the Great Qin Empress, Qin Wushuang. She actually came personally. On the city wall, the officials of the Great Zhou dynasty began to exclaim. Rather than calling Qin Wushuang the Empress of the Great Qin, in fact, in the western border, many people were more willing to call her the Great Qin Demon Empress. 3 years ago, the Great Qin imperial clan underwent a heaven-shaking change. The Qin Emperor's entire family had been massacred. Not a single person from the direct line of descent was left. Currently, Qin Wushuang, as a woman, led the north vanquishing king army to rush for 1,000 miles to avenge the Emperor clan. At that time, the Great Qin Empire was surrounded by war cries. Countless dynasty legatees took this opportunity to launch an attack, wanting to completely destroy Great Qin. But what was even more shocking was that this Great Qin's empress had led an army to kill the 6 dynasties that had invaded the borders by herself. There were no survivors from that battle. The only thing that everyone knew was that the 6 dynasties' 900,000 soldiers had all died at Great Qin's borders. Not a single one of the 200,000 soldiers who followed the empress survived. In the end, only Qin Wushuang returned to the imperial capital of the Great Qin and ascended to the throne. This matter was extremely bizarre. 1,000,000 creatures died in a single night. However, Qin Wushuang had survived. From then on, the Great Qin Demon Emperor became famous. In these 3 years, anyone who dared to offend the Great Qin Empire was killed by Qin Wushuang. The Great Qin Empire had already walked out of its predicament. The destruction of the Emperor clan did not cause the Great Qin Empire to fall out of the top 4 dynasties. It even had the momentum to take over the western border. Interesting, the confusion on Ling Zhao's face gradually dissipated. Instead, he revealed a smile. No matter what kind of secrets this Qin Wushuang was hiding, he would find out in the future. The most important thing now was to destroy the Great Zhou dynasty. Ha 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 ha, Empress Wushuang, you are finally here. Emperor Zhou looked up to the sky and laughed. However, there was no trace of warmth between his brows. His vigilance against this demon empress was no less than Ning Tian's. He just did not expect that she would personally lead an army here. The 10,000 blood guards were all present. It was said that the Great Qin Empire's most elite combat force was only 10,000 people. However, behind these 10,000 people, there were countless spares. One dead person would be replaced by another. It was not that one could join the Blood Dragon Guards with a strong cultivation level. Instead, one had to be perfectly compatible with the Blood Dragon Guard's strongest technique, the Blood Dragon Heaven Punishment Battle Formation. However, since the Empress had come in person, the Blood Guards would follow her. Ning Tiance, today you will die. Suddenly, Emperor Zhou felt somewhat lucky. He felt lucky that reckless young man had killed old Xiang Wang Taifu. Because of this, he did not bear the eternal shame of a ruler asking for forgiveness from his subjects. The 50 cities in the northern border of the Great Zhou dynasty will belong to the Great Qin Empire. Qin Wushuang's beautiful eyes glanced at the million soldiers below and Ning Tiance and the others. Finally, her eyes fixed on Ling Xiao for a moment. She recognized almost all the famous geniuses in the western border. However, who was this young man? How could he stand side by side with Ning Tiance? Moreover, why was there a playful look in his eyes? What? The 50 cities in the northern border? Hearing this, not only Emperor Zhou, but all the courtiers also showed a trace of resentment on their faces. Apparently, the Empress of the Great Qin Empire was profiting from a burning house. However, it seemed that it was possible to exchange 50 cities for the stability of the Great Zhou dynasty. I agree. Emperor Zhou nodded. At this moment, it seemed that he had no other choice. Today, if they wanted to kill Ning Tiance and break the million soldiers, the few god emperors of the Great Zhou dynasty would not be able to do it. In that case, Blood Dragon Guards, set up the Blood Dragon Battle Formation. There was no trace of joy on Qin Wushuang's face. What she wanted was not only the 50 cities of the Great Zhou dynasty. The northern border of the Great Zhou dynasty was the intersection of the 3 empires. It was a place that the military must fight for. As long as she had the 50 cities, she could use it to station troops and plot to conquer the world. Wu Pe, don't worry. I will help you conquer the world. Ha ha ha, Emperor, with the help of the Qin Emperor, this chaos can be solved. Yes, the heavens are helping the Great Zhou dynasty. The Qin Emperor came at the right time. A madman is bound to be in trouble. Ning Tiance and the generals of the Great Xia dynasty can't escape this calamity. The courtiers of the Great Zhou dynasty, who were originally in despair, seemed to have a sign of hope. They raised their arms and shouted with a bright face. However, just as they finished speaking, they saw the young man in white clothes in front of the army suddenly shake his head with a smile. Then, he lifted his feet and walked towards the sky. What is that young man doing? It was very strange. The courtiers of the Great Zhou dynasty, who were originally in a hubbub, suddenly felt a chill in their hearts. They had to admit that the young man in white clothes had a peerless appearance and temperament. No, even the most monstrous young man in the Great Zhou dynasty would pale in comparison to him. Could it be he was going to use his beauty trap? It couldn't be, right? But if this young man used his beauty trap, most likely no woman in the world could resist him, right? Damn. They felt very annoyed and panicked. At this moment, everyone realized that compared to Ning Tiance, this young man in white clothes seemed to be the main character of this rebellion? Little brother Xiao? Ning Tiance frowned slightly. Apparently, he did not understand what Ling Xiao was going to do. The Empress of the Great Qin dynasty was known as a demon, and those 10,000 blood guards were emotionless killing machines that had gone through many battles. Will little brother Xiao end up like old Xiang? Chapter 453. Haha, I've heard that Empress Wushuang is a decisive killer. Now that I've seen her today, she really lives up to her reputation. Ling Xiao walked over slowly and stood proudly in the air with a bright smile on his face. It was as if the sun was blooming at the corner of his mouth. It was dazzling and dazzling. Wow! That young man is so handsome. Yes. Don't tell me that he and Empress Wushuang are a perfect match. What do you mean by a good match? They are a perfect match. Empress Wushuang is cold and arrogant, while young master is warm like the sun. I'm afraid only someone like young master can warm Empress Wushuang's heart, right? Are you so shallow? You only see young master's appearance? Yes, I just can't resist. In Yunfang City, a group of well-dressed noble ladies gathered together and looked at the two people looking at each other from afar. Their beautiful eyes were filled with envy. At this moment, in their hearts, the hatred of the country and the disaster of the dynasty seemed to be unimportant. Only when the celestial couple hugged each other could it be considered a grand sight in the human world. Heaven and earth were willing and the world was in chaos. Who are you? Qin Wushuang frowned slightly and shook her head. Forget it. No matter who you are, you should die today. An endless murderous aura rushed over like ice. However, Ling Xiao only shook his head and smiled. There seemed to be wind and thunder under his feet. Before Qin Wushuang could react, his figure had already appeared in front of her. Then, under the shocked gazes of countless people, that young man actually pulled Qin Wushuang into his embrace. Even Qin Wushuang could not react at this moment. Her face was blank and surprised, and then it turned into an extremely cold expression. For many years, her body had not been touched by anyone, but now, she was held in the arms of an unknown young man? And it was in front of millions of people in the two armies? F***ck. Young Master Ling Xiao. Awesome, in front of the tens of thousands of soldiers, a trace of shock appeared on the faces of the northern generals. Qin Wushuang, the demon emperor of the Great Qin, had always been cold and murderous. Not to mention being held in the arms of someone so rudely, some people even had their families killed because they looked at her too much. But hiss, there was nothing much to say. Young master was the best. Wow! He hugged her. That young master is so manly. I like him so much. Cloudfang City was filled with all kinds of screams, especially those fujoshis who rarely came out of their rooms. Naturally, they would not understand if you were to talk to them about Dynasty's situation. As long as it was something beautiful, it was enough to attract cheers. Zhou Chao and Tang Chao had nothing to do with them. In any case, if the dynasty was destroyed, it would just be a change of emperor. To them, there was no difference at all. At that moment, Zhou Qingtsang and the others were completely stunned. F***ck. What was going on? Why are the reinforcements of the great Zhou Empire embracing the enemy at this moment? Boom! A cold and evil aura quietly filled the air, but Ling Xiao's lips curled into an inexplicable smile. Cousin, are you okay? I've missed you all these years. Once again, Qin Wushuang's beautiful eyes that were filled with murderous intentions froze. Cousin? Could he be you are? Cousin, don't you remember me? I'm the legitimate heir of the great Qin Empire. Ling Xiao stood up, pushed Qin Wushuang away from his embrace, and patted her shoulder gently. Cousin, it's been hard on you all these years. Now that I'm back, you can be a princess in the future. Leave the great Qin to me. Leave it to you? To be honest, Qin Wushuang was still confused. Why did I leave the great Qin to you? You say you're the legitimate heir of the great Qin Empire, and you're? Even if you are, you won't be after I kill you. Cousin, how did you know that I was here? You even specially led troops to reinforce me. Ling Xiao looked at the 10,000 blood dragon guards. How could he not feel the murderous intent in Qin Wushuang's eyes? It was obvious that his cousin did not want to return the empire to him. However, that was what confused Ling Xiao. The disgust in this woman's eyes was not faked. Even her temperament was clearly bleak and empty. Why would such a seemingly desireless woman care about imperial power? There must be something wrong when things were abnormal. What's wrong, cousin? You're not willing? Ling Xiao smiled calmly, but Qin Wushuang shook her head. You said that you're my cousin who has been missing for many years. Do you have proof? She has indeed never seen that legendary cousin Qin Yu. Or rather, in the entire Great Qin, no one had truly seen the only living legitimate heir of the Qin clan. The Great Qin kingdom seal and imperial insignia were both here. How could her little cousin prove his identity? I have a match. Is it the Qin clan's inheritance? Pfft. The Qin clan's inheritance meant that if you say yes, and I say no, it still isn't. Because now I'm the Great Qin Emperor. If I don't give you the throne, you can't take it away. Proof? Ling Xiao frowned and thought for a moment. I don't think so. Qin Wushuang's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly. The words she had prepared were stuck in her throat. TSK. Could it be that this little cousin of his was an idiot? Without proof, you dare to ask for the Great Qin Empire from me? Kill. Without the slightest hesitation, Qin Wushuang suddenly extended her jade-like hands. Her slender fingers were like ghost claws as they ruthlessly slashed down toward Ling Xiao's head. The void shattered like ice crystals, shattering an area of 100 miles. The heavens and earth darkened. An indescribable coldness rose from the bottom of everyone's heart. This feeling was somewhat strange, and yet strangely familiar. But it shouldn't be. In the holy state, there shouldn't be such a clan. Oh, I don't know if this counts. Ling Xiao frowned slightly. Then, he raised a finger. It was the ring finger of his left hand. Amen? What an arrogant youngster. Even now, he still dares to provoke the Qin Emperor. Seeing the two people who were hugging each other a moment ago, and attacking each other in the next, a cold smile immediately appeared on Emperor Zhou's face. Although he had heard of Ling Xiao's name, he did not know where this youngster came from. But that was not important. Seeing Qin Wushuang's attitude, it was likely that Qin Wushuang wanted to kill that little bastard even more than him. When Emperor Zhou saw old Minister Wang Taifu lying dead on the ground, he felt a stifling feeling in his heart. He, as a god emperor, killing a few enemies and then being killed was considered a contribution to the great Zhou dynasty. But forget it. Ling Xiao was the commander of the great Xia dynasty. Once he died, the morale of the army would be in chaos. This chaos could be resolved. You're courting death. Qin Wushuang's pretty face grew colder. Her eyes faintly revealed a trace of gloominess. Especially when the youngster raised his middle finger, she felt incomparably furious. Provocation. This was a blatant provocation. But even now, Ling Xiao still did not move. There was not the slightest flicker of spiritual light around him. It was as if he was actively seeking death. Just when Qin Wushuang's figure appeared a few feet in front of the youngster, a gentle smile suddenly bloomed on his face. Then, everyone was dumbstruck as they saw black flames begin to curl around his body. And on his middle finger, an ordinary stone ring suddenly lit up with resplendent blood-red light. Greetings, Dragon Master! Chapter 454. In the sky, the 10,000 blood dragon guards knelt down neatly. In fact, the figures of 2 emperor gods had already arrived in a flash and blocked Qin Wushuang's path. The great Qin blood dragon guards were the most elite forces of the great Qin. However, they were not only loyal to the great Qin emperor, but also to the blood dragon lord who held the dragon ring. Of course, in the past, the Qin emperor was the blood dragon lord. However, Qin Wushuang was the only one who could not find the blood dragon ancient ring. Therefore, when the Dragon Lord was not here, the Blood Dragon Guards naturally obeyed the Qin Emperor. However, now that the Dragon Lord had returned, they were the Dragon Lord's most loyal servants. What? Looking at the scene before them, Emperor Zhou, Ning Tiance, and the others were all stunned. Dragon Lord? Who exactly was this young man? Why was the great Xia under his control? Why was the war god bowing to him? Why was the great Qin's most elite force kneeling to him? However, damn. It felt like they were courting death? With these 10,000 blood dragon guards, the rebel army seemed to be stronger. Poochie. Finally, a great Zhou official vomited blood and fell to the ground. He seemed to have been driven crazy by the twists and turns of today's plot. The remaining officials also revealed despair in their eyes. Their expressions were miserable. Damn it. Could he not be so exciting all day long? He gave people hope, then gave them despair. He gave them some hope, then gave them complete despair. Even the upright and respected old minister was killed by that young man with one slash. Not to mention begging for mercy, old minister did not even let out a fart hiss. Inexplicably, the officials wanted to kneel down and kowtow to that young man to see his attitude. Qin Wushuang frowned slightly. In the blink of an eye, a cold smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. So you are really Cousin Qin Yu. Cousin, why don't we work together to take down the Great Zhou first and discuss other things in the future? Ling Xiao nodded indifferently. The moment the blood dragon guards appeared, he wore the ancient ring on his hand. The reaction from the ring could not be faked. This ring seemed to be able to easily decide the fate of the blood dragon guards. He had seen Xiao Beifa. Thus, he did not doubt the loyalty of this blood dragon guard. This way, why should he be afraid of a mere Qin Wushuang? It was even to the extent that if it wasn't for the trace of aura on her that Ling Xiao couldn't figure out, he would have already made his move and killed this woman. Forget it. First, he would deal with the Great Zhou Empire. Then, he would slowly peel off Empress Wushuang's clothes. No, he would peel off her secret. Then, he would consider whether he should kill her or keep her alive. That's exactly what I was thinking. With a pair of clear eyes, Qin Wushuang nodded lightly. On the other hand, Ling Xiao only smiled indifferently. Then, he seemed to have suddenly thought of something. Oh, that's right. Cousin, I remember that back then there seemed to be a marriage contract between us, right? What? This time, a trace of panic flashed across Qin Wushuang's charming face. Cousin, you don't know? That's right. When I was secretly sent out of the Qin palace to cultivate with the Pill Emperor, it was to conceal my identity. Such a big matter naturally had to be kept a secret. Originally, when I came of age and returned to inherit the throne, I would marry you as my empress. Who would have thought? But don't worry, cousin. I will definitely take responsibility for the marriage and the orders of my parents. When we have time, let's get to know each other. Then, you will understand my steel-like sincerity. Ling Zhao's voice was gentle and his brows were firm. However, it made Qin Wushuang's heart tremble. Ever since her father had died, she had carried the entire North vanquishing Prince Mansion on her shoulders alone. Her world weariness originated from her hatred for herself, because until today she still couldn't find the real murderer of her father even though she had the world. However, when she saw the gentleness and determination in Ling Zhao's eyes, her heart suddenly felt tired. 3 years of war, countless killings in the end, she was somewhat tired. What should we do? On the city wall, the officials of the Great Zhou Empire were like ants on a hot pan. They looked at Emperor Zhou anxiously. The latter frowned slightly and shouted coldly, "What are you panicking for? With the imperial protection formation of the Great Zhou Empire, what can they do to me? When the reinforcements of the Great Qi arrive?" It didn't seem to be of any use. Now that the Great Qin Empire had obviously submitted to that young man, he only had a few thousand imperial guards left in the imperial capital. No, as long as he could stall for some more time, the generals of the vassal lords would definitely come with their armies. At that time, cousin, do you have a way to break this formation? In the sky, Ling Xiao looked at the cloud square city with a calm expression. With battle god Ning here, what's a mere array formation to him? Qin Wushuang's eyes were cold. Apparently, he didn't want to contribute. Oh, that's true. The heavenly formation Dao Heart and the evolution weapon Dao Principle. Ning Tiance was best at leading an army and breaking formations. Although this formation was extremely powerful, it shouldn't be a problem for him. Big brother, can this formation be broken? Ling Xiao smiled lightly. Ning Tiance only nodded lightly. He stepped forward and stood proudly in the sky. Generals, listen to my order. Set up the sky evolution battle formation. Boom! Like spiritual light, a terrifying battle intent instantly tore through the sky. Ning Tiance's body seemed to be shrouded by immortal clouds that extended for thousands of miles. As the battle intent in the hearts of the millions of soldiers gathered on his body, a terrifying aura suddenly spread out from the sky. At this moment, everyone only felt that a war god of heaven and earth had stepped down from the 9 heavens and stood quietly behind Ning Tiance. It was an ancient battle figure that was hundreds of meters tall. He was covered in armor and revealed an ancient ferocious aura. In his hand, a green battle blade emitted cold light and shattered the space. Decadent Tao sounds resounded, as if thousands of horses and thousands of soldiers galloped past. The sound of horse hooves seemed to have smashed into the deepest part of people's hearts, causing them to unconsciously feel a chill. At this moment, Ning Tiance moved. He calmly raised his battle blade and gently slashed at a spot on the ancient formation. The power of heaven and earth gathered on this blade. The 1,000-meter-long blade light was like a green dragon soaring in the sky. It carried with it the power to destroy eternally and brazenly fell down. Emperor Zhou's expression changed drastically. He looked at the unparalleled blade light that pierced through the sky with shock. In the next moment, the world turned dark and everything fell silent. Above the golden formation, divine light rippled, and in the blink of an eye, it became quiet again. Ha 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 ha! How dare you show off your insignificant skill in front of me? This ancient formation is formed by my Zhou clan's inherited Tao artifact. You? Before Emperor Zhou's voice fell, there was a strange, shattering sound above his head. Kacha kacha. Then, everyone was dumbfounded when they saw spiderweb-like cracks rapidly appear at the place where Ning Tiance's blade light landed. So fast? I haven't even finished acting tough and you're already slapping my face? Didn't you say that you'll lay the foundation, accumulate, suppress, and then take action? F***ck. Everyone, listen to my order. Kill. Ling Zhao's lips curled into a smile as he slashed out with the million battle intent. Ning Tiance's attack just now was enough to severely injure a high-level Emperor God expert. However, it was obvious that this kind of battle intent required time to gather. It was just one attack. Even so, the power of the war god was enough to intimidate. Ah! He's coming in! He's coming in! Everyone, run! In an instant, Cloud Square City was in a complete mess. However, just as Ling Xiao and the others took a step forward and were about to charge into the city, a terrifying pressure suddenly shrouded the entire imperial city from the depths of the imperial palace. Buzz! Chapter 455. Has he finally appeared? The corner of Ling Zhao's mouth rose as he stopped in midair. Zhou Huang's setting was indeed worthy of being a villainous mini-boss like himself. Even if he did not appear, Emperor Zhou would only be a stepping stone for the Xia clan's 9th prince, Xia Chuan, or Xia Feng to unify the western border. As for which of the 2 princes of the great Xia dynasty would reign supreme, tsk. With me, Ling Xiao, the child of destiny is just a toy. What? There are so many children of destiny in this world, and they are all easy to kill? In the era of great battles, there are many monsters. If there is only one child of destiny in each world, I think some people will be confused. Killing a child of destiny for so long, can't you think of other plots? As for why they are easy to kill, everyone is young. If they are not easy to kill, won't it show that I, Ling Xiao, am not awesome enough? Then why are there no children of destiny who have grown up? Tsk. Those who have grown up have either ascended to the upper world or died. Why did they die? Guess. Buzz. A monstrous buzz shook the clouds as a dragon aura covered the sky. A golden figure slowly walked out from Yunfeng City. In an instant, he was in front of everyone. The person who came was wearing a golden robe and looked old. His eyes were filled with golden light and there was a divine aura when he opened and closed them. Beside him stood two handsome young men with golden crowns on their heads. Their expressions were cold and arrogant and they were emitting emperor aura at such a young age. They were the two princes of the great Zhou dynasty, Zhou Yan and Zhou Shen. Seeing the person who came, Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows and there was a hint of playfulness in his eyes. In particular, the aura of the golden-robed elder caused the corners of his mouth to unconsciously curl into a smile. No wonder. As an empire, the strongest in the great Xia dynasty was only a sixth-grade divine emperor. Why did the great Zhou dynasty have a hidden expert? Was this reasonable? Moreover, if you had such a trump card, wouldn't you have unified the western border and become the great Zhou dynasty? So, as for the two young men beside the old man, they were both divine generals but they did not have any luck. It was obvious that the great Zhou dynasty was set up to allow people to destroy the dynasty. Only the heavenly mandate War Immortal had been tricked by Emperor Zhou. If you don't perish, who will? Ning Tiance, are you determined to go against the great Zhou? The golden light in the old man's eyes was piercingly cold, but there was no trace of panic on his face. Although he couldn't leave the Cloud Imperial City, he was invincible in the city. I am not going against the great Zhou dynasty. Today I will destroy your Zhou clan. Ling Xiao stood in front of Ning Tiance and said calmly. Who are you? The old man in the golden robe frowned slightly. Especially at this moment, the respect on Ning Tiance and the others' faces made him feel inexplicably shocked. These people were actually led by this 16 or 17-year-old youth. Great Xia's divine ancestor, Great Qin's emperor, Great Zhou's terminator, Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao stood with his hands behind his back with an indifferent expression. His body was faintly suffused with immortal light, and the rhythm of the Tao was natural. Hearing this series of titles, not only the people of the great Zhou dynasty, but even Ning Tiance and Qin Wushuang's faces froze slightly. How could he be the great Qin's emperor? Especially Qin Wushuang, her beautiful eyes were filled with astonishment. Ling Xiao? Could it be the alias cousin used to hide from his enemies? It sounds quite impressive. The old man in the golden robe's face trembled slightly. In the blink of an eye, his face turned completely gloomy. Brat, you dare to fool me? What's wrong with this world? You don't even allow people to speak the truth? Young man, no matter who you are, since you are so powerful, why don't we have a bet? Bet? Aren't you giving me a chance to slap your face? Promise of 3 moves? Slap my face forcefully? Suddenly, Ling Xiao felt that he had the treatment of a son of destiny. Since you are the commander, I will not bully you. Let my grandson spar with you. Both of you are not allowed to use spiritual weapons. If you win, our 2 dynasties will have a fair fight. If you lose, retreat your troops and are not allowed to step foot in the great Zhou dynasty for 100 years. How about it? The old man in the golden robe's voice was majestic and unquestionable. However, when these words fell into Ling Xiao's ears, he felt somewhat helpless. I thought I was shameless enough, but I didn't expect you to be even more shameless than me. If I win a fair fight, I will retreat if I lose? It seems that regardless of the outcome, the great Zhou dynasty won't lose much? How about this, let the 2 of them fight together. If I lose, I will retreat. If I win, I will have to trouble you to cripple one of your arms. Strangely, when he saw the indifference on Ling Xiao's face, the old ancestor of the great Zhou dynasty suddenly felt somewhat regretful. However, at this moment, in front of the army, he really didn't know how to refuse. Otherwise, wouldn't it seem that he was a coward? Furthermore, Zhou Yan and Zhou Shen had been cultivating with him since they were young and had been tempered by the imperial vein's dragon energy. Now, the two of them were already 40 years old and their cultivations had reached the 8th stage of the divine general realm. If they were to join forces against a teenager, would they lose? Furthermore, even if I lose, if I don't cripple one of my arms, what can you do? At the very most, I'll just fight. I'm a villain, so what if I'm shameless? After all, I'm not the main character of the world. All right, the two of you, go and test this young master's strength. Remember, do not underestimate him. Directly use your strongest attack. At this moment, the old ancestor of the great Zhou dynasty was still somewhat flustered. Ling Zhao's performance was simply too calm and indifferent. Could it be that this brat was truly blessed by the heavens and was hiding his strength? Yes, ancestor. Zhou Yan and Zhou Shen looked at each other, then walked towards Ling Xiao. Golden light began to overflow around the two of them, faintly turning into two dragon shadows, emitting the aura of an emperor. However, when facing the two of them, Ling Xiao's eyes flashed with a trace of mockery. His white robe blossomed with starlight, making him look otherworldly and dazzling. Boom! Zhou Yan and Zhou Shen did not waste any time talking nonsense. Their figures swept out and instantly arrived above Ling Xiao's head. All of their spiritual energy converged on their fists. The void instantly trembled, and the wind was so oppressive that it sounded like a ghost crying. Two golden dragon shadows shot out from the fists, aiming straight for Ling Xiao's chest. However, facing the strongest attack of the two 8th stage divine generals, Ling Xiao's face did not show the slightest hint of panic. In fact, not a trace of aura was emitted from his body. Just as the two princes appeared in front of him, Ling Xiao suddenly stretched out his hands and gently clenched them towards the two domineering fist shadows. The world instantly quieted down. In the next moment, everyone's face was filled with intense shock. The two princes of the great Zhou dynasty, who were so overbearing just a moment ago, suddenly stopped in midair. Below them, Ling Xiao clenched his fists, and the smile on his face grew wider. Crack! The crisp sound of bones breaking resounded. Then, Ling Xiao gently pulled Zhou Yan and Zhou Shen in front of him with his fists. Both fists punched out at the same time. Poochie! Even though they were wearing divine armors, even though their bodies had been tempered by dragon aura for decades, their bodies were still instantly penetrated by Ling Xiao's fists. Chapter 456. Plop. The thick smell of blood instantly filled the entire area. Ling Xiao casually threw the corpses of the two great Zhou princes off his arm. Then, he raised his head and looked at the great Zhou ancestor who was on top of the city wall. Ancestor, it's your turn. You, Ancestor Zhou's face trembled and turned ashen. Just now, he seemed to have felt that the young man did not use any spiritual energy attack. Instead, he used only his physical strength to completely crush Zhou Yan and Chu Li. How was that possible? Could it be that this person was the reincarnation of an almighty? Why? Ancestor, you can't do it yourself? Is there anyone from the great Zhou dynasty who is willing to help me? Ling Xiao nodded and smiled. Since it was the same setting, he naturally understood the mentality of the villain. In a bet, if I win, you die. If I lose, then we have to bet again. However, the great Zhou ancestor before him was a peak 7th grade divine emperor. He was only one step away from 8th grade divine emperor. He could be considered the top existence in the western region. The ministers of the great Zhou dynasty wanted to kill him as a sign of loyalty to Ling Xiao. However, their strength did not allow them to do so. Kid, don't think that you can do whatever you want in Cloud Fong City just because you won the bet. With me here, you can't break this city. Boom. However, just as Ancestor Zhou finished speaking, an ear-piercing buzzing sound came from the crowd behind him. Then, everyone felt an extreme sharpness piercing through the sky toward Ancestor Zhou's back. Boom. Ancestor Zhou's expression changed greatly, especially when he sensed the terrifying emperor's might contained in the sharpness. his face instantly turned ferocious. At the same time, outside Cloud Fong City, Ling Xiao waved his hand. The million-strong army behind him surged out like a torrent and rushed toward the great Zhou dynasty's imperial city. With you here, I can still break this city with a wave of my hand. Ling Xiao stood in the void and did not move forward rashly. It was obvious that Ancestor Zhou was filled with hatred. Once he seized the opportunity, he would definitely kill Chu Li at all costs. No matter how strong his cultivation was, half of his body was instantly cut into pieces by a fifth-grade Divine Emperor's sneak attack. Chu Dahai! How dare you betray me? The Zhou Emperor's eyes widened as he stared in disbelief at the old man who had wounded the Zhou ancestor with the ancient sword. His eyes were filled with shock. He didn't think that the chamberlain who had taken care of him since he was a child would betray him. In other words, he already had glory, splendor, wealth, and a status that was second only to one person and above tens of thousands. What else would he covet? But before Emperor Zhou could figure it out, there was the sound of a gust of wind behind him. Qiao Yunli, Ning Tiance, and the others had already arrived and surrounded the ministers of the great Zhou dynasty. Chu Dahai! How dare you sneak attack this ancestor? Ancestor Zhou roared. Golden light bloomed from his body like a blazing sun. Then, everyone watched in horror as his body healed at a heaven-defying speed. The silhouette of a golden dragon wriggled out from his body. In a short moment, the great Zhou ancestor had turned into a humanoid monster with a dragon head. A majestic dragon's aura covered the surroundings, and rich spiritual energy evolved into a sea in his body. Seeing this scene, Ling Xiao's face did not change in the slightest. From the moment the great Zhou ancestor appeared, he had sensed it. The reason why this old man could enter the 7th grade and was close to the 8th grade was because he had merged his body with the great Zhou dragon vein. In other words, his strength had never reached such a level. As long as he left the Cloud Fong City, his true form would be revealed. This was the reason why the great Zhou dynasty had not crushed the other 7 empires. This peak 7th grade Divine Emperor couldn't get out. Die with him. Ling Xiao sent a message through his consciousness. Chu Dahai's face instantly showed a determined look. He held his sword and pounced toward Ancestor Zhou. Heaven and earth were vast, like a whirlpool of spiritual energy covering the void. A 5th grade Divine Emperor's desperate attack was terrifying. You're courting death. Since he had revealed his true form, there was no longer any fear on Ancestor Zhou's face. With the support of the great Zhou dragon vein's endless spiritual energy, as long as he was in the Cloud Fong City, he was invincible. No matter how serious his injuries were, they could be healed in an instant. Looking at Chu Dahai, who had broken the sky with his sword, Ancestor Zhou's eyes shone with golden light. Sharp blades extended from his palms, like dragon palms, and pressed forward. In his palms, Tao patterns were formed and divine power surged. Countless strange phenomena bloomed in the sky. Among them, there was the shadow of a dragon soaring in the sky and swallowing the clouds. This palm was heaven-defying. In the sky, golden light shone brightly. It was extremely shocking. I am already invincible in this world. As long as I am Zhou Tian, the empire will not be destroyed. Boom! The dragon claw and the ancient sword collided violently. The ear-piercing sound of metal clashing echoed for thousands of miles. What a pity! After all, Chu Dahai was only a 5th grade Divine Emperor. Regardless of cultivation or techniques, he could not be compared to Ancestor Zhou. The moment the two collided, the ancient sword shattered. Ancestor Zhou's dragon claws pierced through the space and stabbed into Chu Dahai's chest. Traitor, die! Boom! Terrifying spiritual light mixed with the color of blood blossomed in the sky. Heaven and earth reversed and yin and yang shattered. The collapse of the 9 heavens was nothing more than this. However, what surprised Ancestor Zhou was that there was no fear or despair on Chu Dahai's face. Instead, there was a faint smile. Then, everyone could only feel an extremely oppressive spiritual power surging from the void. Chu Dahai suddenly stretched out his hands and hugged Ancestor Zhou tightly. Outside his body, the spiritual power of his soul intertwined. It was like a divine wheel that could destroy the world. It connected to heaven and made the sun and moon lose their brilliance. Oh no! He is going to self-destruct his divine soul and physical body. Emperor Zhou's expression changed drastically. The eyes of the great Zhou Empire's experts flashed with fear. Boom! However, before they could react, a blood-colored spiritual power instantly turned into a tide and enveloped the entire world. In the sky above Cloudfang City, layers of space shattered. The terrifying cracks in the void turned into a reverse current that swept across thousands of miles. It was like the end of the world. The tremor caused by the self-destruction of a fifth-grade divine emperor was no different from the collapse of heaven and earth. In Cloudfang City, ancient buildings collapsed and people were plunged into misery and suffering. Layers of smoke and dust rose into the sky and covered the sky. Cough, cough. Until, in the center of the spiritual power, there was suddenly a violent cough. Only then did the daze in everyone's eyes disappear. They turned to look into the distance with fear. At that moment, thousands of miles high in the sky, a figure that was completely shattered and looked like a bloody man stood in the air. At that moment there was not a single intact piece of skin or flesh on his body. Even his 2 arms had disappeared without a trace. The golden scales on his face were shattered, revealing his white bones. It was extremely miserable. Ha 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 ha. Chu Dahai, do you think you can kill me like this? I am already invincible in this world. I am invincible. Ancestor Zhou looked up to the sky and laughed. Although the aura around him was extremely weak, he still did not panic. As long as he stood on Cloudfang City, he could devour the dragon energy and recover his cultivation. Buzz! As expected, golden spiritual pillars snaked out from the ground and enveloped Ancestor Zhou. However, just as the golden light was about to fall on him, the space in front of him suddenly cracked open with a strange black crack. A faint wisp of wind and thunder intent filled the world. In the next moment, Ling Zhao's figure suddenly appeared. That handsome and calm face seemed to have a hint of mockery. In this world, who dares to say that he is invincible? Who is truly invincible? It is just your own wishful thinking. Chapter 457. Buzz! The space between heaven and earth collapsed. It was as if a world had descended and swallowed Zhou Zu's figure. Along with him, the tall and straight figure in white also disappeared. Gulp! Zhou Zu's body trembled and there was finally a trace of panic in his eyes. Zhou Zu was the last trump card of the Great Zhou. This trump card could be said to be heaven-defying. Although it could not help him unify heaven and earth, Zhou Zu was an invincible existence in Yunfang City's dragon vein. But at this moment, looking at the mysterious disappearance of Zhou Zu was very panicked. He seemed to feel that the great Zhou Empire had fallen. Zhou Qingcang, you brought this upon yourself. Ning Tiance held the azure dragon saber and stood in the void. Under his feet, millions of soldiers raised their arms and shouted, slaughtering the imperial guards. It's over, my great Zhou is going to be destroyed. Zhou Zu wanted to cry but had no tears. He had no intention to fight. If not for Zhou Zu's whereabouts being unknown, he would have surrendered. No, wait a little longer. Let's wait and see. Zhou Zu was a peak grade 7 divine emperor and had merged with the great Zhou's dragon vein. How could he die so easily? Xingzhou, central border. On a green mountain, Qi looked at the broken soul tablet in his hand and shook his head slightly. He took out another tablet and engraved the word "See" on it. In the realm, Ling Xiao looked indifferently at Zhou Zu, who was in a daze, and the corner of his mouth curled into a playful smile. Ancestor, are you still invincible? Where is this? Zhou Zu's face was blank. He looked down at the ground under his feet and suddenly felt a chill in his heart. Damn it! I am indeed invincible in Yunfeng City, but I did not say that I was invincible outside. No, who is this young man? He can actually teleport. Haha, little friend, who doesn't show off their youth. I was just joking with you just now. Look, I've already lost. I'm willing to give up the title of invincible to you. No, in the future, you'll be the emperor of the great Zhou dynasty. As long as you let me live, I'm willing to follow you. The older one was the more afraid of death. It was true. At this time, Zhou Zhu didn't even have a complete skeleton in his body. He stood straight, pretending to be righteous. Oh, so that's how it is. Ling Xiao nodded and chuckled, a playful look in his eyes. Although Zhou Zhu pretended to be humble on the surface, spiritual power gradually gathered around his body. Although Ling Xiao's methods were terrifying and his strength was unfathomable, but he was a dignified god-emperor, so how could he sincerely submit? As long as he could recover a bit of his spiritual power, he would be able to kill this young man with a wave of his hand. At this moment, dragon energy began to spread from the ground. Zhou Zu's expression changed greatly. He suddenly looked up to the sky and laughed wildly. Ha 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 ha. Dragon Chi. It seemed like it was just a smokescreen. Little bastard, do you think you can fool me with this little trick of yours? At this time, Zhou Zu seemed to have figured it out. He was afraid that this young man had seen his bravery and had deliberately set up some kind of illusion array to make him mistakenly think that he was in another area. Needless to say, this illusory formation was extremely realistic. Even he could not sense the connection between himself and the great Zhou dragon vein. But the underground dragon chi could not fool anyone. In the entire great Zhou Empire, only the imperial capital's dragon vein could be so domineering. In this world, I am invincible. Looking at the arrogant Zhou Zu, Ling Xiao shook his head slightly. Ancestor, do you think you can do it again? Humph. Little bastard, watch how I break your illusory formation. Emperor Vein Dragon Energy, condense. Buzz! Like the sea, the dragon energy instantly surged from the spiritual mountain and turned into a long dragon that stood above Zhou Zu's head. At this time, he still could not sense the connection between his body and the dragon energy. But it could not be wrong. The dragon vein had already condensed, how could it be fake? Great Zhou dragon luck, gather in my body! Zhou Zu shouted angrily, his face full of disdain. Just as he finished speaking, he saw the dragon vein above his head crouch down and pour into his head. Zhou Zu's eyes flashed with excitement. In just a moment, I can crush you into pieces. His true cultivation had not reached the peak of the 7th level of the God-Emperor realm, but he was at the 6th level, which was more terrifying than Qiao Yunli. At this time, even if he was seriously injured, if he fought back with all his might, it would be earth-shattering. Therefore, Ling Xiao did not move, nor did he call for Xing Shen and the others. He just watched the dragon vein's spiritual energy pour into Zhou Zu's body. Ha 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 ha. I am invincible. Even at that moment, Zhou Zu was still laughing madly toward the sky. As he laughed, he felt that something was amiss. The dragon vein's spiritual energy seemed to be too strong. It was endless and did not seem to have any intention of stopping. At this speed, his body could not merge with the dragon vein's spiritual energy. Stop! Stop! Puff! How could a mere emperor god fuse with the spiritual energy contained in an entire dragon's vein? In just a breath's time, Zhou Zu's body was completely crushed by the surging spiritual energy. The spiritual energy that poured into his body turned into spiritual energy again and condensed into the shadow of a dragon in midair. The corner of Ling Xiao's mouth curled up, and a bloody light flashed in his eyes. The soul-sucking ghost pearl floating in midair suddenly emitted a glaring bloody light. Before Zhou Zu's divine soul could react, it swallowed it. Boom! The Black Soul Palace rose by dozens of feet, and Ling Zhao's divine soul had entered the 4th grade. At the same time, a golden light fell from Zhou Zu's body and fell into Ling Zhao's hand, turning into an ancient scroll. The Great Zhou Dynasty's inherited doctrine artifact, the Emperor's chart of the mountains and seas. You are invincible? Puff. Ling Xiao smiled faintly, and in a flash, he appeared in Yunfang City. At this time, with Ning Tiance and Xiao Yunli working together, even Zhou Zu was beaten beyond recognition. His aura was weak, and he was struggling bitterly. The entire Yunfang City fell into a dead silence. All the experts of the Great Zhou Dynasty knelt on the city wall. They were in low spirits, and had lost all their vigor. Buzz. At this time, there was a sudden sound of wind in the distant sky. Then 2 God Emperors' auras came from afar, and behind them were tens of thousands of soldiers. However, before the 2 God Emperors landed on the ground, their expressions were completely frozen. That little bloody man is Zhou Zu? It seems so. Was he beaten up? Damn. Should I go down or not? Great Qi, everyone from Great Qi, come and help me, I can still fight. Zhou Zu shouted with all his might, and his eyes were filled with joy. However, the moment he finished speaking, he felt a sudden chill on his neck. When he wanted to turn his head to look, he saw that his body had grown taller for no reason. Gulp. The 2 God Emperors of Great Qi swallowed hard, and their eyes trembled as they looked at the young man in white who suddenly appeared behind Zhou Zu and the black blade in his hand, which was glowing with endless demonic light, and a bright smile bloomed on their faces. Ha 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 ha, I thought I was late, but I didn't expect to make it in time. This must be the Great Xia Dynasty's divine ancestor, Lord Ling Xiao. I am Qi Yu, Prince Jing, and of Great Qi. I have traveled thousands of miles to congratulate you on your great victory. Qi Yu bowed, and his face was filled with joy. In the place where he looked, Yunfang City was full of black armor. Obviously, it had been occupied by Ning Tiance's army in the north. Along the way, he had heard a lot about Ling Zhao's fierce reputation. He originally thought that the Great Xia Dynasty's divine ancestor was just a gimmick to scare people. But now that he saw it, he felt that it was not the case. How daring was he to kill a God Emperor? It was ridiculous that Emperor Qi wanted to use this opportunity to make things difficult for the Great Xia Dynasty. The Great Xia Dynasty's divine ancestor is back. I think you want to destroy the Great Qi Dynasty? Prince Jing, and came to congratulate me empty-handed? Ling Xiao smiled faintly, and a hint of evil flashed in his eyes. Chapter 458. This. Ha 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 ha, of course not. In order to congratulate you for defeating the Great Zhou Dynasty, I specially chose a gift. Qi Yu waved his hand and searched in his Qiankuan bag for a long time. Finally, he took out a high-grade Dao artifact. My lord, this sword is called the Ancient Qiankuan Sword. It is a treasure of the Jing An Prefecture. Today, I will give it to you to congratulate you on your victory. Only one high-grade Dao artifact? Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. He bent down and took out Emperor Zhou's Qiankuan bag. Then, he stabbed Emperor Zhou's heart. Ha 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 ha, why is there only one? Qi Yu gritted his teeth and finally handed over the entire Qiankuan bag, as well as the Qiankuan bags of the great Qi experts behind him, to Ling Xiao. Only then did he let out a sorrowful cry. My lord, I came in a hurry this time and did not prepare enough. When you have time to visit the Great Qi next time, I will definitely be more prepared. Ling Xiao coldly glanced at the void. This time, Qi Yu had come to reinforce Emperor Zhou. Although he did not bring many people, they were all elite soldiers. 2 emperors and 3 kings were killed. For Great Qi it should be a blow. King Qi, I see that the mole on your face will affect the situation of the western border. You should be killed. What? Qi Yu's expression changed. He turned around and tried to escape. However, Qiao Yunli and the others had surrounded him and imprisoned him. Ling Xiao, I am Emperor Zhou's younger brother. If you dare to kill me, Great Qi will not let you go. I have never liked to make enemies. Therefore, I will eliminate anyone who is my enemy as soon as possible. This way, there will be no enemies to speak of. Ling Xiao said indifferently. Then, he walked toward the officials of Great Zhou. For him, divine weapons and spiritual treasures were not very useful. However, the Divine Emperor's blood soul was a supplement for the demonic blade. If this immemorial demonic blade could be truly awakened, it would be much more useful than any Tao artifact or divine weapon. My lord, please spare my life. I am willing to follow you. My lord, spare my life. It was Emperor Zhou. No, it was Zhou Qingcang who forced me to do this. When I saw you, I knew that you are an outstanding person. True dragon of the western border. Zhou Qingcang is nothing. Puqi. Without waiting for the loyal official of Great Zhou to finish speaking, Ling Xiao raised his saber and sent him to the afterlife. I hate people who flatter me the most. Other than flattering, what else can you do? This. Hearing that, the remaining emperor god of the Great Zhou Empire's eyes lit up and he suddenly roared, Ling Xiao? You thief, how dare you kill the emperor of the Great Zhou dynasty? I won't let you off even if I become a ghost. F***ck. If this Ling Xiao didn't like people who bootlick, then he must be a righteous person who appreciated loyalty. Yes, that must be it. Otherwise, how could Ning Tiance be taken in by the Lord? Just as the god Arch expert was rejoicing in his heart and rejoicing that he was the first to step out and act tough, he saw a black light flashing in front of him, following which, his head rolled onto the ground. You won't let me go even if you become a ghost? Then go ahead and become a ghost. If I can kill you once, I can kill you a second time. Hepush. Seeing that, the remaining few Great Zhou Empire's experts collapsed onto the ground and wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Devil! This brat was obviously a devil. He was unmoved by force or persuasion. Now we don't even know how to King beg for mercy. Do you guys still want to struggle? Ling Xiao looked coldly at the remaining few people. However, he saw their lips move slightly. In the end, they gritted their teeth and closed their eyes. Plop! A few heads fell to the ground. With a wave of his hand, Ling Xiao kept the corpses. At the same time, Qi Yu and the rest of the Great Zhou Empire's experts were captured by Qiao Yunli and the rest. However, after seeing the outcome of the Great Zhou Empire's officials, Qi Yu's eyes flashed with determination. Following which, he resolutely self-destructed his divine soul. Even if I die, I will die with all of you. Ling Zhao's eyes narrowed slightly. One of his eyes suddenly turned blood red. At this moment, Qi Yu was already on the verge of a mental breakdown. All of his spiritual energy had been exhausted. Before he could react, the world in front of him suddenly darkened. A black moon stretched across the sky, emitting a demonic bloody light. In front of me, you have to get my permission if you want to die. Ling Zhao's expression was indifferent. He slashed out with the black blade in his hand. In a short moment, the heads of the Great Zhou Empire's experts fell neatly to the ground. From the beginning to the end, Qin Wushuang did not say a word. He only watched everything that happened with a cold expression. In an instant, this young man killed 6 Great Zhou Empire's experts? What was wrong with this world? The current Great Zhou Empire's experts had fallen to such an unbearable state? They killed as they pleased? It was difficult for them to die even if they wanted to? Especially the indifference on Ling Zhao's face. The Great Qin Empire's Great Zhou Empire felt a chill from the bottom of his heart. Moreover, what made Qin Wushuang feel even more strange was that the young man's figure was like a ghost. He could disappear without a trace. Big brother, lead the army into the Great Zhou Empire's palace first. Kill all the great Zhou Empire's officials and generals without mercy. The saying that a wildfire could not burn down a person had existed since ancient times. Although the western border was only a small stop on Ling Zhao's journey to immortality. However, he would rather kill the wrong person than let the villains go. In the realm, Ling Xiao looked at the pile of corpses in front of him. The corner of his mouth lifted slightly. He stabbed the black blade in his hand and swallowed all the corpses in an instant. He had a feeling that today, this immemorial blade would completely release its demonic brilliance. Buzz! Indeed! As the last great Zhou Empire's corpse turned into ashes, a dense demonic light suddenly lit up on the immemorial blade. In an instant, it evolved into thousands of demonic shadows. There were dragons soaring in the sky, giant shadows tearing the clouds apart, gods roaring in indignation, and giant birds crying blood and dying. Ling Xiao had not even seen most of them before. However, the spiritual aura emitted from their bodies could be said to be destructive and annihilating the world. A wisp of spiritual aura was enough to destroy an entire realm. Inexplicably, Ling Xiao seemed to feel that these terrifying beings had all died under this demonic blade. In the primordial era, gods and demons fought for supremacy. Ling Xiao did not know how many true immortals and primes there were in the world. However, there was no doubt that the owner of this demonic blade was the one who stood above thousands of gods and demons. Buzz! Just as Ling Xiao was secretly amazed, a loud and clear buzzing sound suddenly sounded in his ears. Then, a demonic shadow that seemed to have stepped through the ages quietly stood in front of Ling Xiao. At this moment, his figure was a little blurry as if it was formed by demonic aura. His appearance could not be seen clearly. However, the aura he exuded was a domineering aura that seemed to be the sole ruler of the world. Roar! The thousands of gods and demons instantly let out a sorrowful cry. It contained pain, anger, despair, and a trace of unconcealed fear. The demonic shadow suddenly held the demonic blade and gently slashed down. The first style of the immemorial 9 styles, Heaven Punishment. Chapter 459. This is. Ling Zhao's eyes widened as he watched the immemorial demonic blade blossom with a wisp of demonic brilliance and turn into a 10,000 zhang long blade light. Heaven and earth collapsed, and the great Tao ceased to exist. With the power of punishing the heavens, it destroyed all enemies in front of it. Boom! The blade light slashed down, and the entire realm trembled for a moment. Vaguely, Ling Xiao seemed to see the outside world in a corner of the world. As for the tens of thousands of fiend god phantoms, they let out a wail in unison before completely turning into ashes. What a terrifying blade technique! Even Ling Xiao was shocked as he looked at the demonic figure standing proudly in front of him. There was nothing but respect in his heart. One blade to kill a fiend god. Heaven and earth, who else but me? As expected of the sky demon, as expected of the immemorial demonic blade. Such a domineering aura was truly awe-inspiring. Clang! When the demonic blade fell to the ground and the demonic figure dissipated, Ling Xiao bent down to pick it up and held it in his hand. It was obvious that the first move of punishing the heavens was awakened after thousands of blood souls. If the first move was already so powerful, how domineering would the remaining 8 moves be? Ling Xiao, you're getting worse. Just as Ling Xiao put away his blade and was about to leave the realm, a disdainful voice came from behind him. Feng Ling? You're finally willing to come out? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly and turned his head to look at the thin and petite figure in black. That woman left. Why can't I come out? Feng Ling pouted. She had been stifled in the demon-suppressing tower for a while. Why do you hate Qing Chan so much? Ling Xiao frowned. You know her identity? I don't hate her. It's just that the aura of her clan is annoying. Feng Ling snorted and looked at the sky palace in the distance. Then, she sniffed. Ling Xiao, your place is not bad. The spirit qi is very rich, and there seems to be a lot of fragrance of spirit herbs. Feng Ling, listen to me. Ling Xiao narrowed his eyes, while Feng Ling's face revealed a sly expression. Her canine teeth flashed coldly as she took a step forward and disappeared. Ling Xiao gritted his teeth, but in the end, he sighed softly. Whatever this little ancestor wanted to do, he couldn't stop her at all. But this clan? What kind of secret was Yi Qingchan hiding? In the great Zhou imperial palace, blood formed a river. According to Ling Zhao's orders, all officials of the Zhou dynasty were to be killed without exception. Ning Tiance and the others stood below the palace and looked at the young man sitting on the throne with awe in their eyes. From the north to Cloudfang City, along the way, Ling Xiao had already used his methods and strength to intimidate everyone. Once an emperor succeeds, all the bones will wither. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers died in this battle. The dynasty that had dominated the western border for hundreds of years was destroyed overnight. This was something that had never happened in the past. As long as it was an imperial dynasty, it was already a top power in the Western territory, and its foundation and strength could be said to be terrifying. Although Ling Xiao had more or less borrowed the power of Ning Tiance and the experts of the Great Xia to conquer the Zhou dynasty, it was undeniable that they were willing to submit to him. It was already a shocking method. The entire Great Zhou dynasty, 167 living beings, were all killed. 3 emperor gods of the Great Zhou dynasty and 1 ancestor, who was close to rank 8, had all died today. The remaining divine kings and divine marquises were either guarding the border or enjoying themselves in their fiefdoms. They were just fish on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. Big brother, now that we have conquered Cloudfang City, there must be some remnants of the Zhou dynasty in the Great Zhou dynasty. You lead the troops to quell the chaos. As for the imperial city, let the imperial preceptor take care of it for now. Ling Xiao glanced at Xiao Yunli. The latter's expression froze, and he quickly bowed. Ling Xiao didn't care about the dynasty. After searching the treasury and seizing the dragon vein, the so-called dynasty was just an empty shell. However, the 10,000 blood dragon guards were worth nurturing. Xiao Beifo was in charge of the Great Qin. He also had Xing Shen and Huaheng, 2 rank 4 emperor gods following him. Even if Qin Wushuang had some secrets, he didn't seem to be much of a threat. As for the throne of the Great Zhou, cousin, are you interested? Suddenly, Ling Xiao looked at Qin Wushuang and a gentle smile emerged from the corner of his mouth. Even with Qin Wushuang's cold personality, he couldn't help but tremble. He looked at Ling Xiao in disbelief. What did he mean? He was going to give me the empire that he had fought so hard for? Suddenly, Qin Wushuang felt that he seemed to have underestimated this young man. Originally, he was still thinking about how to protect the great Qin Empire in his hands. However, it seemed that the honor of the throne was not worth mentioning in this young man's eyes. Especially the clarity in Ling Zhao's eyes, it made Qin Wushuang feel a different kind of shock from the bottom of his heart. No work, no reward, however. In the end, Qin Wushuang shook his head and didn't accept Ling Zhao's good intentions. She wanted the 8 dynasties to submit, but Ling Xiao always gave her a dangerous feeling. This kind of benefit came too easily and made her uneasy. Oh, big brother, why don't I give you the throne? Ling Xiao smiled lightly. It seemed that in his eyes the throne was just a hot potato. He could sit on it if he wanted. Instantly, the entire hall quieted down. Everyone looked at the young man sitting on the golden chair with complicated emotions in their eyes. If it was in the past, the first thing an emperor would do after seizing the empire was to kill his generals. However, Lord Ling Xiao, you are righteous, loyal, and worthy of respect. Little brother Xiao, the generals of the northern region are only willing to follow you to conquer the world. We don't seek fame or fortune, but to fulfill your great wish. Suddenly, Ning Tiance bowed deeply to Ling Xiao. Now, he believed that this young man's ambition was never to seek fame or fortune for himself. Before the Shuangshan Pass, Ling Zhao's words were still ringing in their ears. When the western border is unified, there will be no more wars in the world. Ah, it's all for the common people. Ling Xiao sighed and his expression gradually turned serious. The Great Qin is my foundation. I still have some things to investigate. Big brother, state teacher, I'll leave the Great Zhou to you for now. As long as little brother Xiao gives the order, the million soldiers of the northern region will come with their swords. Ning Tian stood straight and shouted loudly. Seeing this scene, Qin Wushuang frowned slightly. Inwardly, she was even more afraid of this cousin of hers. The war god of the northern region, who had never been defeated, was now following a young man so loyally? Although the two called each other brothers, they were clearly master and servant. However, if he didn't care about the throne, why would he go to the Great Qin? Investigate? Investigate who? Cousin, let's rest for a few days and then continue our journey. In the end, Ling Xiao nodded with a smile and turned to walk towards the depths of the Zhou Palace. This trip was full of twists and turns, but the ending was satisfactory. Now that all the chess pieces of the western border were in place, it was time to reap the harvest. After obtaining the dragon vein and the spiritual treasure, he would turn the blood dragon guards into an iron-blooded battle army. By then, he would unify the western border with the power of the three dynasties. This piece of land should be renamed Lingjiang. As for the Cold Moon Immortal Palace, it was said that the Immortal Ascension secret realm would appear in less than a year. By then, all the monsters of the western border would go there. After eating enough leeks, it was time to change the taste and go to the southern border to eat fish and crabs. However, to be honest, it was said that oysters were quite nutritious. Chapter 460. In front of the treasury in the Great Zhou Palace, Ling Xiao looked at the dazzling array of numinous treasures and spirit materials in front of him and smiled. With the number of divine artifacts in his hands, it should not be a problem to equip an army with divine artifacts. The Blood Dragon Guards were loyal and were all at the Paong stage. If he gave them numinous treasures and spirit pills, who in the western border could defeat them? With a wave of his hand, the treasury was emptied. What? Not leaving some for Ning Tian's and the others? F***CK. I will ascend to the upper world sooner or later. Even if Xingzhou explodes in the future, what does it have to do with me? Don't you know how to prepare for a rainy day? These numinous treasures and spirit materials will be useful everywhere. I will be at ease if I carry them with me. At the end of the Zhou Palace, Ling Xiao stood with his hands behind his back. This palace was where the great Zhou patriarch cultivated in seclusion and was also a forbidden area of the Zhou Palace. Before Ling Xiao walked in, he felt a terrifying aura coming at him. Obviously, the dragon vein was inside. Boom! Ling Xiao held the demonic saber horizontally and walked into the main hall. A golden dragon pillar stood in the middle. There were chains wrapped around it and layers of runes flashed. It was obviously suppressing something. The great Zhou patriarch's cultivation had reached the peak of grade 7 because of this dragon vein. Furthermore, from the looks of it, he must have found a way to seal it here. This was much more convenient. Ling Xiao grinned, lifted the dragon pillar, and disappeared on the spot. In the realm, Ling Xiao stood in the heavenly palace with his hands behind his back. Once the seal was broken, the dragon vein would definitely pour out. With Ling Xiao's current strength, it would be difficult for him to truly suppress it. Therefore, at this moment, Xing Shen and the others were behind him, quietly looking at the young man in front of them with eyes full of respect. The fourth dragon vein. Although they did not participate in the process of snatching the dragon vein, anyone who could occupy such a spiritual item in the world was a top sect. No matter how their master obtained it, his method was terrifying. Ling Xiao held the demonic saber horizontally in his hand and swung it down fiercely. A wisp of domineering aura slanted out, faintly showing signs of splitting open the sky. The golden pillar that sealed the dragon vein instantly shattered. A wisp of dragon aura suddenly shone brightly and turned into a dragon shadow that stood in the void. Roar! An ear-piercing dragon's roar instantly resounded through the sky, and spiritual winds began to blow in all directions. At this moment, Ning Er's figure suddenly appeared at the side of the heavenly palace. She stared at the dragon shadow above her head in surprise. Wow, another divine dragon! There was no trace of fear on her face. In other words, she had seen a true dragon more than once during her days with Ling Xiao. However, at this moment, a ferocious glint flashed across the dragon vein's fierce eyes. It actually bent down and bit Ning Er. Ning Er! Ling Xiao's expression changed, and the demonic light around his body suddenly became dazzling. With a single step, he arrived in front of Ning Er. Before he could attack, he saw that the dragon vein's shadow suddenly and strangely stopped in midair. In front of him, a black-clothed figure broke through the air. There was a faint hint of anger on her fair and beautiful face. "Damn big worm, how dare you be so rash?" Then, Ling Xiao watched in shock as Feng Ling waved her jade-like hand lightly and directly shattered the dragon vein's shadow into pieces. It turned into a sea of spiritual light and dissipated. 9 dragons imprisoning heaven. Buzz! In the void above, a golden formation appeared. An ancient aura came crashing down and devoured the dragon vein. Roar! The 4 dragons roared into the sky, and the entire realm trembled for a moment. A wave of heaven-imprisoning power spread out, causing Xing Shun and the others to tremble. However, at this moment, Ling Xiao's eyes flashed. He looked at Feng Ling with even more confusion and shock. She waved her hand to suppress the dragon vein and even shattered it. However, there was not a trace of spiritual energy fluctuation on her body. Where did this girl come from? The upper realm? But she said that she had been in the demon-subduing tower since she was born? What kind of secret was hidden in this tower? According to Yi Fan's model, this tower should have a great origin. However, it seemed that its origin was still somewhat beyond Ling Xiao's imagination. Wow, little ancestor is so powerful! Ning Er's little face bloomed with a smile, but Ling Xiao looked at her in surprise. What did you call her? Isn't it? Little ancestor Feng Ling is Big Brother's little ancestor. Isn't she Ning Er's little ancestor? Ling Xiao glared at Feng Ling, but the latter did not even look at him. She stepped forward and appeared in front of Ning Er. Do you believe me this time? I believe you. Little ancestor's divine power is boundless. Looking at the reverence on Ning Er's face, Ling Xiao felt that her appearance just now was a little too coincidental. Could it be that Feng Ling deliberately wanted to show off in front of her? Follow little ancestor in the future and you will live a good life. Feng Ling's height was almost the same as Ning Er, but in front of the latter, she acted like an adult, which made people unable to help but laugh. However, Ling Xiao's smile froze on his face. Feng Ling alone was enough to give him a headache. If Ning Er followed her bad example, Ling Xiao, lend me your dragon to play with for 2 days. Feng Ling said indifferently and called Hua Hua over, carrying Ning Er to the distant mountain. Now, this area was already filled with spiritual energy. Whether it was the mountains or the lakes, they all contained vitality. There were even signs of life in the depths of some mountains. Of course, with Feng Ling by her side, there was no need to worry about Ning Er's safety. However, he was very worried about this girl's character. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Great Zhou Imperial Palace, in front of the main hall. Ling Xiao looked at Ning Tiance and the others in front of him with clear eyes. Big brother, I'll have to trouble you to take care of Great Zhou. Little brother Xiao, don't worry. I will eliminate the remnants of Great Zhou. Ning Tiance nodded with a smile and looked at Ling Xiao, Qin Wushuang and the 10,000 blood guards as they walked towards the distance. At the same time, the news of the Great Zhou's destruction had spread across the western border. Although the western border was in constant wars, it had been more than 200 years since the last dynasty fell. Although the Great Zhou was not the top dynasty, it was still one of the 8 dynasties. Now, it had been destroyed overnight. It was truly shocking. Moreover, with the destruction of the Great Zhou clan, an unfamiliar name swept across the entire western border like a storm. Ling Xiao, a mysterious young man. Some people said that the 100 lives of the Great Zhou clan, including the 3 god emperors and the 9 divine kings, were all killed by this person. Some people said that Ling Xiao was the god of Great Xia dynasty. He woke up from his deep sleep and wanted to unify the western border. Some people said that he was cold-blooded and ruthless. He pulled up a mountain and killed 100,000 blood spirit. However, some people said that he was upright and loyal. He did not care about the throne at all. He just wanted to create a prosperous world where there would be no more wars and dispute. Regardless, now in the western border, even the villagers knew that there was a young master called Ling Xiao who was 17 years old. Moreover, there were already shops selling Ling Xiao's portrait. It was said that if you put it in your home and worshipped it carefully, it could ward off evil spirits, suppress demons, have children, and increase your luck. Damn. Chapter 461. For an entire day, Ling Xiao sat on the dragon carriage and followed Qin Wushuang to the great Qin's imperial capital, the profound Sun City. Along the way, Qin Wushuang did not say a word to Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao, on the other hand, was looking at that valiant figure with interest. Yet, he was also looking at that cold and indifferent figure. Especially when her red cloak fluttered in the wind, it revealed her long and slender legs and her round breasts. Needless to say, Qin Wushuang's beauty was completely different from Yi Qingqian's. It was a kind of sadness of being tired of the rest of his life. This was a woman with a story. Ling Xiao decided that the first thing he would do when he landed was to find a guard of the great Qin Empire and search her. Besides Nian Qinyun, her figure was the most perfect one that Ling Xiao had ever seen. She was tall, well-proportioned, and had a heroic spirit. She was like a fierce horse that did not submit, only conquering. At the age of 40, she was a second-grade divine emperor. Although she did not have luck, she was exceptionally talented. Moreover, he needed to find a representative for the western border. I, Ling Xiao, am a good man who conquers everywhere. How can I stay in a corner? In my life, I will follow the teachings of the sage and love everyone. Pfft. Although Qin Wushuang did not seem to be interested in anything or anyone now, but I have 10,000 ways to make her fall for me. When the silhouette of a majestic city appeared at the end of his sight, Ling Xiao's lips curled up into a smile. Above the city, an ancient formation shrouded the sky and emitted a golden radiance, revealing the supreme power of the emperor. At the city gate, Xiao Beifa stood in front of the people in his blood armor. Countless powerful auras followed behind him and looked into the distance. Ling Xiao stood up from the carriage and dropped down side by side with Qin Wushuang. Behind the two, 10,000 blood guards stood in an orderly manner. They did not make any sound, but the bloody aura surrounding them was intimidating. "Greetings, Dragon Master." Xiao Beifa walked over in large strides. Then, under Qin Wushuang's furious gaze, he knelt on one knee and shouted. Hearing this, the officials of the great Qin Empire, who were still hesitating, no longer dared to hesitate. They also knelt on the ground and bowed to Ling Xiao. F***CK. Who was Xiao Beifa? The great Qin Empire's imperial general, the commander of the Blood Dragon Guards. Unlike Ning Tiance, this general was not a gentle person. In these years, Qin Wushuang had contributed greatly to the great Qin being able to stand at the peak of the empire. However, the name of Xiao Bei had also shocked the world. It was said that his hair was not the color of blood. It was only because he had killed too many people that his blood had seeped into his body, causing him to become like this. Listen, isn't it scary? Even though Great Qin's citizens feared and respected this ferocious general, they often used his name to scare their children. If you don't listen, I'll ask General Shao to eat you up. Hiss. Besides, after all, Qin Wushuang was not the legitimate ruler. He was only temporarily in charge of the imperial court. Although the officials did not know how, Xiao Beifo was sure that the person in front of them was the descendant of the Qin emperor, but we don't dare to ask, and we don't dare to say. What if General Shao gets angry and stabs us to death with his halberd? Not to mention, in Xiao Beifa's eyes, the important officials of the imperial court and the pillars of the Great Qin were nothing. When he returned to the empire to quell the chaos, there was an emperor god who questioned his intentions. In the end, Xiao Beifa did not say anything and smashed him into a pile of minced meat. From then on, everyone in the Great Qin treated General Shao as their father. Now, General Shao had knelt down. If they did not kneel down, wouldn't it be disrespectful to him? Seeing this scene, Ling Shao nodded indifferently. He glanced at the crowd and felt slightly surprised. There were 5 emperors and 7 kings in the Great Qin imperial court. The most powerful one was a white-haired elder. He was a 6th-grade emperor god and had a vigorous aura. However, it seemed that Xiao Beifa held a special position in the Great Qin Empire. Even the 6th-grade emperor god was following him. It was an unexpected surprise. However, when Ling Shao saw Xiao Beifa, he was shocked by the bloodthirst on his body. Although he did not have any luck, he was afraid that he would be punished by the heavens for killing too many people. However, compared to Ning Tian's, this person was more suitable to stay by his side as a follower. Ning Tian's Dao was to lead troops on the battlefield. In other words, if he left the western border, he would at most be a 3rd-grade emperor god. In terms of combat strength, he might not be able to defeat Hua Heng. However, Xiao Beifa was different. He had the spirit of a sacrificial warrior. At the crucial moment, he could hold the fort and sacrifice his life for his master. However, in the Great Qin Empire, there was not even a single person with luck. Haha, everyone, get up. Although I am the Dragon Lord, Wushuang is the emperor of the Great Qin Empire now. How could Ling Shao not feel the coldness from Qin Wushuang? However, it was obvious that she was afraid of Xiao Beifa. If he wanted the empress to submit to him, he had to make her lower her guard first. He had to give her safety, give her something to look forward to, and give her happiness. Sure enough, after hearing Ling Zhao's words, a trace of surprise flashed across Qin Wushuang's cold face. At this moment, she did not lower her guard. Instead, she felt that she could not see through Ling Shao. As the emperor of the Great Qin Empire, she never liked the feeling of being out of control. It seemed that she had to find a chance to get rid of this disaster. Let's go. Let's enter the city first. Ling Shao led the way and walked into the mystic Sun City. At this moment, the 2 sides of the streets were already filled with the Great Qin Empire's cultivators and citizens. When they saw the white-clothed young man who was surrounded by the ministers, their faces were filled with excitement. The Great Qin Empire's official line. Just these 4 words represented the will of the people, commonly known as the will of the people. No matter how well Qin Wushuang managed the Great Qin Empire, she was still a side relative and a substitute. Now that Ling Shao had returned to the Great Qin Empire, it was destiny. The young master had returned, the blood guards had submitted, and the Great Qin Empire would rise. General Shao, bring me to the Blood Dragon Hall to take a look. When everyone arrived at the center of the mystic Sun City, and before a majestic ancient hall, Ling Shao suddenly turned to look at Xiao Beifa and said indifferently, "Yes." Xiao Beifa bowed and personally led Ling Shao to the side of the imperial palace. The remaining officials stood in the wind in confusion. Damn. They were not qualified to enter the Blood Dragon Hall, but the Dragon Master did not ask us to leave first. Should we leave or wait? Humph. Follow me back to the palace. Qin Wushuang gritted her teeth as killing intent circulated in her beautiful eyes. These two bastards simply did not put her, the emperor of the great Qin Empire, in their eyes. Although this Ling Xiao did not have the heart to seize the throne, with him around, what was the point of the throne? Humph, Blood Dragon Guards, Xiao Bei Fa, since you are not willing to follow me, then get rid of both of you. Fortunately, I have been working hard these few years and the officials are loyal. All the experts of the great Qin Empire see me as the emperor. With just the two of you, you want to make me a mere figurehead? However, just as Qin Wushuang lifted her feet to walk towards the imperial palace, she felt that there were no footsteps following behind her. Instantly, a trace of doubt flashed across her pretty face. When she turned to look, the spiritual power around her finally surged out uncontrollably. Woo! A ghostly howl resounded from the depths of the 9 underworlds. In Qin Wushuang's eyes, a gray light flashed, revealing a strange look. At this moment, in front of the palace door, a group of officials was looking at her with an awkward expression. However, they did not move a single step. Damn! If Xiao Bei Fa did not speak, would they dare to move? If by any chance they caused a fatal disaster, it would be somewhat not worth it. Humph. Chapter 462. Emperor, please return to the palace first. We will stay here enjoying the cool air. Haha, cool air. One of the Emperor God warriors bowed with an embarrassed smile and turned to look elsewhere. In the end, Qin Wushuang suppressed his anger and walked towards the palace alone. Even she was afraid of Xiao Beifa's power. Initially, she wanted to lead 10,000 blood guards to the great Zhou dynasty to weaken the Blood Dragon Hall. However, she did not expect Ling Xiao to have the ancient Blood Dragon Ring, which completely disrupted her plan. Now, although Ling Xiao did not fight for the throne, he commanded the Blood Dragon Hall and had Xiao Beifa as his follower. His position was even higher than hers. No, she must discuss with Wu Puan how to get rid of these two without anyone knowing. Sister, you are back? Just as Qin Wushuang was pondering, a gentle laughter came from the palace. Hearing the voice, a faint smile finally appeared on Qin Wushuang's face. Like the winter sun, the gorgeous light of the iceberg, it was breathtaking. Wu Pu, didn't I tell you not to leave the palace? It's cold and your body is weak. You will get sick. Qin Wushuang walked quickly to the palace and glared at the young man sitting on the wooden carriage. Although his tone was reproachful, the tiredness on his face had disappeared completely. Ever since her father was killed and the entire mansion was massacred, her brother was her only family in this world. As long as Qin Wushuang wanted something, she would give it to him. She even sat on the throne and conquered the western border just to borrow the power of the masses to prolong Wu Po's life. Wu Po. Her brother was born with a missing soul. Although he had the talent, his body was too weak and there was the risk of dying at any time. Hearing Qin Wushuang's words, a gentle smile appeared on Qin Wushuang's pale face. Currently, he was holding a black kitten in his arms. However, the strange thing was that the cat's eyes were ice blue in color. Then, under Qin Wushuang's panicked gaze, Qin Wushuang stood up from the wooden carriage while trembling. Damn! So he was not a cripple. Only, from his appearance, it seemed that a gust of wind could blow him down. Sister, how is the great show? Why are you back so soon? Sit down. Between Qin Wushuang's brows there was some nervousness. He immediately held Qin Wushuang's arm and pushed him back onto the wooden carriage. Then, he pushed him towards the palace. Wu Pa, Great Qin's missing prince has returned. Big sis, are you talking about Qin Yu? Qin Wupa's eyes narrowed slightly as a hint of astonishment appeared on his face. However, this kind of astonishment did not come from panic. Instead, there was some joy. Right now, there was no one in Great Qin who did not know Qin Yu's name. Back then, in order to protect his growth, the Qin emperor did not hesitate to send him out of the palace when he was young to cultivate with the Pill emperor. Although the Qin dynasty fell into chaos and the Qin emperor's entire clan was killed, this legitimate prince disappeared without a trace. Most importantly, Qin Wupa also knew that he possessed a heaven and earth spirit fire. That's right. Not only has he returned, but he also has the blood dragon ancient ring. Xiao Beifeng is now following him. Qin Wushuang frowned coldly and his tone sounded inexplicably heavy. Wupa, I always feel that this person is not simple. Although he did not reveal his ambition to fight for the throne, but it makes people feel uneasy. Big sis, where is he? I want to see him. A trace of coldness flashed across Qin Wupa's eyes. It was a type of grayish-white spiritual light that appeared extremely strange. He went to the Blood Dragon Holy Palace. In a moment, he should come to the Xingyang Palace. At that time, you should hide in the dark and take a look at him. See if you can see some secrets from him. Qin Wushuang knew that although this little brother of his could not cultivate spiritual qi, his pair of eyes contained divine wisdom. He could see through illusions and see through the rules of cultivation. This was his talent. Yet, he felt somewhat helpless because the heavens were jealous of his talent. In Qin Wushuang's opinion, if it wasn't for the fact that he was born with a missing soul, he would certainly be one of the top monstrous figures in the western border. All right. Qin Wupa nodded lightly and his expression remained calm. Compared to Qin Wushuang's world weariness, his eyes were filled with a wave of heart-palpitating coldness. It's been 30 years. Even if you have taken that step, you would never expect me to still be alive, right? In this life, not only will I kill you with my own hands, I will also kill all your descendants. I will break your bloodline, destroy your inheritance, and then go to the upper world to refine you into a slave. Profound Sun City, inside a pitch-black ancient palace. Ling Xiao looked solemnly at the 300-meter-tall divine monument in front of him. It was densely engraved with names. This was the final resting place of the fallen Blood Dragon Guards. It was the greatest honor of the Blood Dragon Guards to be able to engrave their names on the monument. Dragon Master, since you have returned, we are willing to help you ascend to the throne and become the Emperor. Xiao Beifa stood behind Ling Xiao. Beside him, there were two other God Emperor experts, Long De and Long Air. Further away, there were 10,000 Blood Dragon Guards. Among them, there were 7 divine kings and 19 divine marquises. It was terrifying. What is it? So that you can remain loyal? Ling Xiao's expression was solemn and his tone was low. At first, it sounded like praise for the loyalty of the Blood Dragon Guards. Actually, he just wanted to figure out how to control this group of Blood Guards. This was a question, not a lament. We are willing to die for the Dragon Master. Orderly shouts resounded throughout the hall. All the Blood Guards released a monstrous baleful aura. Dragon Master, the Blood Dragon Guards have all gone through many tests. There is no disloyalty. Xiao Beifa raised his head slightly with a proud expression. At the same time, anyone who enters the Blood Dragon Hall will send a wisp of their divine soul into this monument. The Blood Dragon ancient ring in your hands is the key to controlling our lives. If the ring is destroyed, we will die. I see. Hearing this, a smile flashed across Ling Xiao's face. That's more like it. It's actually so fancy. Loyalty and willingness to die weren't reliable at all. As a villain, the power in their hands is considered their own power. It's our first time meeting, so I didn't prepare any gift. Let's give each of you a divine artifact. Ling Xiao smiled faintly, but the expressions of the Blood Dragon Guards suddenly froze. What did the Dragon Master say? A divine artifact for each of us? F***CK. Did I hear wrongly? There were a total of 10,000 Blood Guards. One divine artifact for each of them meant 10,000 divine artifacts. Even the great Qin Empire's treasury did not have so many divine artifacts. A slip of the tongue? Before they could think further, Ling Xiao suddenly waved his hand, and a monstrous spiritual light instantly filled the sky. Piles of numinous treasures appeared in front of everyone. From afar, they were as tall as small mountains. Of course, these divine artifacts were just a drop in the bucket for Ling Xiao. Furthermore, with Su Yan, this little rich lady, Ling Xiao really did not have much use for numinous treasures and spirit stones. Divine emperors and divine kings will be given Tao artifact. Divine marquises can choose 3 divine artifacts, divine generals can choose 2, and delusion breaker can choose 1. Seeing the shock on everyone's faces, Ling Xiao's lips curled into a smile. Of course, if anyone breaks through, this reward can be added at any time. Hiss. Even Xiao Beifa's face flashed with shock. He did have Tao artifacts on him, and there was more than one. However, to take out tens of thousands of divine artifacts so casually, how terrifying was that? Very suddenly, Xiao Beifa felt that the Dragon Master did not need to rely on the Blood Dragon Guards at all. The Blood Dragon Guards needed to rely on the Dragon Master. Chapter 463. What are you waiting for? One by one, come forward and choose. Ling Xiao shook his head, his eyes deep. He naturally didn't care about a mere great Qin. The trip to the western border was just to collect the 9 dragon veins and forge the demonic blade. He could also harvest a few leeks along the way. It would be a lot of fun, and these 10,000 dragon guards would be his power to conquer the Xingzhou. The stronger they were, the more confident Ling Xiao would be. Moreover, since these people's lives were in his hands, it would save him the time to place soul seals on them one by one. Therefore, not only were the villains sinister, but the Emperor was also very cautious. River Feather, you are kind and magnanimous. Not only did you give me women and providence, but you also gave me an iron-blooded army. F***ck. After everyone finished choosing their spiritual treasures, Ling Xiao's eyes suddenly flickered with a monstrous soul light. Then, before everyone could react, the world in front of them suddenly changed. At this moment, a vast mountain appeared in front of everyone, and in the middle stood a bluestone hall. In front of the hall was a 1,000-foot square. More importantly, the spirit chi here could be said to be terrifying. It was 10 times or even 100 times denser than the outside world. In the future, this will be the Blood Dragon Hall, your training ground. If you have nothing to do, you can cultivate here. Don't worry, someone will send you spirit pills regularly. Ling Xiao's expression was dignified, and his body surged with the aura of a sovereign. The Great Qin is not what I want. What I want is the entire western border. Boom. Suddenly, a bloody aura surged from all the dragon guards, and the battle intent in their eyes was shocking. No wonder the Dragon Master didn't care about the position of Emperor. It turned out that what he wanted was the entire world. However, at this moment, no one felt that he was greedy. On the contrary, such a Dragon Master was worth following. He had returned to look down on the world. General Xiao, let's go. In the end, Ling Xiao didn't say anything else and led Xiao Beifa to the center of the realm. The Blood Dragon Guards were in the north of the realm. It was empty and suitable for training. As Ling Xiao's figure descended from the sky, Han Zhan and the others immediately surrounded him and bowed deeply. However, at this moment, the faces of the disciples of the Medicine Hall were somewhat pale. Their eyes were sunken, and they appeared to be extremely weak. There were even a few people who were holding green immortal herbs in their hands and stuffing them into their mouth. Han Zhan, from today onwards, send 100,000 spirit-gathering pills to the Blood Dragon Hall every month. 100,000. Han Zhan's legs went soft and he almost fell to the ground. F***ck. Could it be that I did something wrong and the Lord wants to kill me secretly? 100,000 soul-gathering pills, with only a dozen subordinates and 7 or 8 cauldrons. Something's wrong. This was a heavy responsibility. This is a sign that the master trusts me. I must work harder and live up to my name as the Medicine King. What? Is there any problem? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly, while Han Zhan and the others instantly trembled and shook their heads desperately. No. I swear to complete the Lord's orders with my life. Yes. Ling Xiao nodded and flew into the distance with Xiao Beifa. Medicine King, what should we do? Only when Ling Xiao's figure was far away did the alchemists hang their heads like deflated balloons. What should we do? I will give you a number, and you must refine 1,000 pills a day. As long as you don't die, you must refine them to death. Refine and eat at the same time. Don't stop the medicine. As long as you live, you must not stop refining pills. Han Zhan gritted his teeth and stuffed the immortal herb in his hand into his mouth. Then, he took out his cauldron and prepared to go all out. Dragon, Lord Qin Wushuang is somewhat strange. You must be careful. Outside the territory, Ling Xiao and Xiao Beifa walked side by side toward the imperial palace in the distance. General Xiao, is there any news about my master, the Pill Emperor? Ling Xiao nodded slightly. However, inwardly, he felt that the massacre of the Qin Emperor's bloodline and the disappearance of the Pill Emperor were too strange. Moreover, Xiao Beifa had returned to quell the rebellion. Although he had killed thousands of people, from the princes to the guards, it was still too easy. What was the point of a rebellion that had no chance of winning? The traitor had a deep mind. It was impossible that he did not know about the existence of Xiao Beifa and the Blood Dragon Hall. However, the things that happened later were too childish. There must be a bigger conspiracy hidden in it. No. Although I did not witness what happened that year, I heard that after the Pill Emperor sent you away, he was surrounded by a group of unknown experts on the Eight Pinnacles Mountain. At that time, the Pill Emperor had lost all his spiritual power. However, his methods were extraordinary. In the end, he disappeared without a trace. Xiao Beifa shook his head and sounded sorrowful. However, Ling Xiao only frowned and suddenly opened his mouth to say, "Does that Qin Wushuang have a fiancé?" He did not care whether the Pill Emperor was dead or not. He only wanted, if this old thing did not die, it would be a good idea to capture him and make him a pill slave. As for Qin Wushuang, a woman of a concubine bloodline without any providence was sitting on the throne of the great Qin Empire. This was somewhat strange. Could it be that there was a destined person standing behind her? Fiancé? My lord, no. A trace of doubt flashed across Xiao Beifa's eyes. Clearly, he did not understand what Ling Xiao meant. But on second thought, he seemed to have thought of something. Could it be that Jun Shang is planning to have this older female cousin, no? Ling Xiao pondered for a moment. In the end, he only nodded and smiled. Then, he walked forward. No matter what secrets were hidden in the great Qin palace, since he was here, all the demons and monsters should show their true forms. If it did not work, he would capture that Qin Wushuang and search her soul. Everything would come to light. Achoo! Strangely, in the Qin palace, Qin Wushuang and Qin Wushuang sneezed at the same time. Then, the two looked at each other and smiled. They looked like brothers and sisters. Dragon Master! General Xiao! Just as the two of them walked to the door of the palace, the officials of the great Qin Empire immediately smiled and hugged each other. Where's Qin Wushuang? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. There was a trace of playfulness in his eyes. The treatment of a villain was really comfortable. Everywhere he went, there were bootlickers. Emperor, she returned to the palace first. I'm afraid she went to prepare a congratulatory banquet for the Dragon Master. Ha 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 ha. That's right. The Dragon Master is destined to return. The great Qin Empire will congratulate him for 3 years. Yes, yes, yes. I calculated with my fingers that the true dragon has returned. The great Qin Empire will unify the western border. Hearing the flattery of the officials, Ling Xiao smiled and walked toward the ancient palace. When everyone's figures appeared in the palace, Ling Zhao's eyes suddenly focused. He saw Qin Wushuang sitting in the palace with cold eyes. However, at this moment, she had already changed out of her armor and was wearing a red emperor's robe. Although she did not have a heroic spirit, she had the charm of a woman. Especially the tiredness on her face. It was like a graceful swan descending to the mortal world. But just as Ling Zhao's lips curled up and he was about to walk into the palace, he felt a wisp of eerie soul quietly envelop him. It was about to invade his soul. F***ck? You dare to show off your slight skill in front of an expert? Who was the one lamenting that the mortal world was not worth it? Chapter 464. A buzzing sound quietly resounded from Ling Zhao's sea of soul. Tens of thousands of ripples suddenly appeared in the space around him. An indescribably gloomy fluctuation suddenly spread out, instantly attracting everyone's attention. Who dares to plot against the Dragon Master? Xiao Beifa took a step forward. Blood qi swirled around his body as he stood firmly in front of Ling Xiao. At this moment, a painful scream came from the back of the hall. Ah! Hearing the sound, Qin Wushuang's face froze, and her figure disappeared. A gloomy expression flashed across Ling Zhao's face. Just as he was about to give chase, he heard the familiar sound of a system notification. Beep, the child of destiny is terrified. Congratulations to the host for plundering 300 luck points and 3,000 villain points. What the hell? Ling Zhao's expression froze, but he did not hide the joy in his eyes. I knew it. In the great Qin Empire, how could there not be a single person with destiny? I heard people say that when you want to sleep, someone will give you a pillow. I thought that this treatment was only suitable for the child of destiny. But now it seems. Oh right. As a villain, any child of destiny who sees me will want to step on me. Even if my soul stage was the same as what it looked like on the surface, which was only a divine lord, that soul stage attack would have already invaded my sea of soul. Interesting, I didn't think that there would be a soul stage cultivator in the Xingzhou land. The corners of Ling Zhao's lips curled up slightly as he walked towards the back of the palace. Just now, there was a flash of panic on Qin Wushuang's face. Ever since he saw the Empress of the Great Qin in the Great Zhou Empire, there was only coldness and boredom on her face. But when she heard that scream, she actually panicked. Thinking of this, Ling Xiao suddenly had a guess in his heart. No fiancé? Could it be? She has a younger brother? Younger brother demon? My sister, peerless beauty? Damn. Cousin! I am also a younger brother. Help me. Up? When the ministers followed Ling Xiao to the back of the hall, they saw a young man in white, bleeding from the corner of his mouth, lying on a wooden chair, unconscious. Ling Xiao did not feel a trace of spiritual energy around him. But that glaring luck, it was a bit greedy. 4,000 luck points, 5th grade Divine King Soul, Void Ghost Body, Yin Underworld Dao. Ghost Body? A cold light flashed in Ling Zhao's eyes, but a smile appeared on his face. Wushuang. This is. He is my younger brother, Qin Wupa. Qin Wushuang's voice was cold, and it was apparent that he was anxious. Her younger brother's body. However, under her meticulous care over the past few years, there had never been such an accident. Just now, he only said that he would hide in the dark and watch Ling Xiao. Why did he suddenly fainted? Furthermore, from the looks of it, it was obvious that his heart had been injured, and the vitality in his body had withered. Wupa! Wake up! As expected, Ling Xiao nodded with a smile and walked to Qin Wushuang's side. Let me take a look. You? You know medicine. Qin Wushuang frowned. She was annoyed. But halfway through her words, she suddenly remembered that the person in front of her was the direct disciple of the Pill Emperor. He was born with alchemy veins. If he did not know medicine, who would? Haha, cousin, don't worry. I specialize in treating all kinds of difficult and complicated diseases. Gynecological diseases. Cough, cough, let me do it. Ling Xiao lowered his head and looked at the frighteningly pale face in front of him. Indeed, the face of a woman was paler than a normal person. However, just as the officials were waiting for Ling Xiao to perform some kind of mysterious medical skill, or some kind of ancient acupuncture technique, Ling Xiao suddenly changed his mind. The young man suddenly raised his hand and slapped Qin Wupa's face. It was to the extent that because he used too much strength, his body, along with the wheeled wooden chariot under him, flipped over to the ground. Gulp! The entire hall fell into a dead silence. Even Qin Wushuang could not react in time. All the ministers looked at Ling Xiao with fear. Their mouths were slightly open as if they wanted to say something. Only Xiao Beifa had a calm face. However, there was already a bloody aura circulating around his body. Everyone knew that the empress of the great Qin dynasty, Qin Wushuang, was cold. She did not care about worldly affairs. She was ruthless and ruthless. However, she cherished her brother, Qin Wupa. She would satisfy all his requests. There were even rumors in the imperial court that Qin Wushuang conquered the world to satisfy her brother's wishes and help him become the eternal emperor. Not to mention that Qin Wupa was slapped to the ground when he was unconscious. Even if the palace maids who served him accidentally hurt him, Qin Wushuang would kill them on the spot. But now, it seemed like there was going to be a bloodbath ahead of time. Although Ling Xiao was the legitimate heir of the great Qin dynasty and had the Blood Dragon Hall following him, but Qin Wushuang was the empress after all. She had some loyal followers behind her. Once the two fell out, it would be a disaster for the great Qin dynasty. But, Dragon Lord, you're whipping my unconscious and useless younger brother so brazenly. That's indeed a little too much. Even if we want to help you, we don't know what to say. But, just when Qin Wushuang was filled with murderous intentions and was about to kill Ling Xiao, a trace of doubt emerged from the latter's face. It shouldn't be. My expelling blood stasis dissolving depression palm was personally taught by my teacher. It is extremely effective for people who are unconscious due to blood stasis. It shouldn't be. Could it be that I used too little strength? What? Expelling blood stasis dissolving depression palm? Personally taught by the Pill Emperor? Qin Wushuang's pretty face froze. Her hands that were clenched into claws also quietly relaxed. Especially when she saw the seriousness and doubt on Ling Xiao's face. It made her unconsciously believe him. Young Emperor. Qin Wushuang hesitated slightly. Just when she was about to speak, she saw Ling Xiao frowning slightly. He looked at her with a gloomy expression and said, "Cousin, I already said that I am no longer the young emperor. You are the empress of the great Qin dynasty. Just call me cousin." This. Qin Wushuang pursed her red lips tightly. In the end, she did not refute. "Cousin, what happened to Wushuang? According to my observation, he must have suffered a great shock and is pretending. Cough, cough. Blood stasis caused him to faint." Ling Xiao sighed softly with a serious expression. "What? Blood stasis? Cousin, what should we do? Will his life be in danger?" At this moment, Qin Wushuang was obviously panicking. She actually took the initiative to help Qin Wushuang up from the ground. Then, she looked at Ling Xiao with a sincere gaze and said, "Cousin, quickly give me another palm strike. You must wake him up. I only have this one brother. As long as you can save him, I will agree to any request you have." "Haha, cousin, don't worry. With me around, it will be hard for him to die." Ling Xiao smiled indifferently. The spiritual light on his hand suddenly became denser. How could he not see that Qin Wushuang was not unconscious? He was obviously faking it. As for the reason, it was probably because his soul was suppressed by the ancient Pangu stone. It was too late for him to escape. That was why he resorted to this. Furthermore, Ling Xiao had already thought of how he was going to act when he woke up. Interesting. He was clearly a soul cultivator with terrifying combat strength. Yet, he pretended to be a trash. Pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger? But I am not an ordinary tiger. I am the 9 true devil. Chapter 465. Even if you want to die, it's hard? Qin Wushuang frowned and nodded. In her heart, she felt that there was something wrong with this sentence. But now, since Ling Xiao could see through Wu Po's illness, he should be able to wake him up, right? If Wu Po died, she would not be able to conquer the world. Cousin, hold him up, I'm going to use force. Ling Xiao nodded and smiled. The spiritual light in his hands suddenly became denser and emitted a deafening buzzing sound. The minister's eyes constricted and their hearts trembled. Damn. With this momentum, if this slap landed, not only would Qin Wushuang's heart be blocked, his head would also be slapped off, right? But, just when Ling Xiao was about to slap Qin Wushuang's face with a vicious expression, he saw that young man, who was being supported by Qin Wushuang, suddenly let out a light moan and opened his eyes in a daze. Seeing this, Ling Xiao's smile became wider and he suddenly waved his hand. At the same time, his eyes flashed with panic and he exclaimed, "Not good, I can't hold it back." But, just like this, under Qin Wushuang's shocked gaze, Ling Xiao's palm slapped out again. Although it looked like he deliberately restrained his power, when the slap landed on the face, it still caused Qin Wushuang's neck to tilt and he spat out 2 white teeth and 3 drops of blood. Pucci. If Qin Wushuang had not held him down, this slap would have at least sent Qin Wushuang flying for a long time. Beat. The destined child's heart is filled with hatred and his heart is blocked. Congratulations to the host for plundering 300 luck points and 3,000 villain points. Hearing the notification from the system, the playful look in Ling Xiao's eyes became even more intense. However, a hint of anger gushed out from his face. I've already said that the stasis-expelling melancholy-dispelling palm that I've passed down to my honored master would definitely be effective with just 1 strike. Cousin, you just didn't believe me and insisted that I give you another strike. Haha, in terms of acting skills, I'm not targeting anyone. Everyone in Xingzhou is my little brother. Hearing this, Qin Wushuang's mouth overflowed with blood and he almost fainted again. But, at this time, he bit his tongue and forced himself to stay awake. Otherwise, he was really afraid that he would be slapped to death by this bastard in front of him. At this moment, he also had some doubts in his heart and even some fear. That's right, he was unable to cultivate spiritual energy. However, with his godly soul realm, even an ordinary emperor god was no match for him. The reason why he pretended to be crippled was to hide his identity. He sat behind the scenes and played with the momentum of the world. Otherwise, once someone saw through his physique, he was afraid that he would be treated as a demon and killed before he could take his revenge. Soulless, you're awake. How do you feel? Qin Wushuang's beautiful eyes were red and her face was full of concern. Especially when she saw the blood stain at the corner of Qin Wupa's mouth, she felt an indescribable sense of self-blame. I am fine. Qin Wupa gritted his teeth fiercely. However, he pretended to be puzzled. How do I feel? Look at my swollen face, isn't it clear enough? I feel great. F***ck. Big sister, what happened? Qin Wupa looked around blankly with an innocent expression. However, in Ling Xiao's eyes, this scene was truly amusing. Are you showing off your acting skills? Wu Po, I also want to ask you what happened. Why did you suddenly vomit blood and faint? Coldness circulated around Qin Wushuang's body. The temperature of the entire hall instantly dropped. I don't know. I was sitting here just now when I suddenly saw a ghost figure flash before my eyes. Then I don't know anything. Qin Wupa frowned and looked somewhat terrified. What? Ghost figure? Qin Wushuang and the other officials were stunned. They could not help but feel puzzled. The great Qin imperial palace was heavily guarded. How could there be a ghost figure? However, just as everyone was pondering, a miserable scream suddenly came from the depths of the palace. The officials' expressions turned cold. Xiao Beifa even took a step forward and disappeared. Did a demon really enter the Qin imperial palace? Qin Wushuang waved her hand and shouted coldly, "Seal the entire imperial palace. No one is allowed to leave." "Yes, Emperor." When only Ling Xiao, Qin Wushuang, and Qin Wupa were left in the hall, the atmosphere suddenly became oppressive. Demon? It was obvious that the miserable scream from the depths of the palace was Qin Wupa's doing. If it were not for his dazzling luck and the system's notification, Ling Xiao would most likely believe that there were other demons in the Qin imperial palace. However, as a result, Ling Xiao suddenly knew how to deal with this new leak. "Didn't you say that there were demons in the Qin imperial palace? If someone were to find out that the demon was you, he. Whoosh! Xiao Beifa's figure appeared from the void. He looked at Ling Xiao with a serious expression. "How is it? Did you find anything?" Ling Xiao's tone was calm. At this moment, he could not wait for Qin Wupa to be more ruthless and create some terrible disasters. Although he would temporarily be free from suspicion, in the future, he would bring disaster upon himself. There was a palace maid who was sucked dry. Sucked dry? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly and his expression was extremely exaggerated. "So cruel? How did you suck her dry?" "All the essence blood in her body was lost. Even her soul was gone." Xiao Beifa's face was gloomy. It was obvious that he was somewhat shocked and angry. Why did a demon appear in the Qin imperial palace on the first day that the monarch returned? Moreover, that demon's methods were strange. If the monarch did not react in time, even he would not have felt anything strange. Could it be the demon that killed the Qin emperor's bloodline back then? Suddenly, Xiao Beifa felt a sense of guilt in his heart. Plop! "Monarch, it's my fault for not protecting you well. That demon escaped, it's all right. A mere demon is nothing to be worried about. I believe that since ancient times, evil has never won over good. However, Wupa, you have to be more careful in the future. I heard that these demons like to forcefully take over those who are weak. Don't fall into their trap." Ling Xiao smiled faintly, his tone inexplicably meaningful. Then, without waiting for Qin Wupa to reply, Ling Xiao's gaze returned to Qin Wushuang. "Cousin, you said just now, if I can save Wupa, you will fulfill all my requests?" This, Qin Wushuang's pretty face froze. Especially that smile on Ling Xiao's face, it made her feel slightly uneasy. "Of course, I will keep my word." Qin Wushuang snorted coldly. A trace of ridicule flashed across her eyes. Indeed, she was about to reveal her foxtail, right? She said that she would not fight for the throne. However, how many people could resist the temptation of being above tens of thousands of people? However, even if you were to ascend the throne and I abdicate, it would only block the mouths of the people. As long as you die one day, wouldn't the throne return to me? Wupa, don't worry. I will definitely do what I promised you. Oh, then cousin, should we choose a date first? Ling Xiao smiled gently. However, Qin Wushuang and Qin Wupa's expressions froze. Choose a date? What date? Chapter 466. Have you forgotten that I told you in the Great Zhou that we are engaged? Although my bloodline was destroyed and delayed this matter, but Ling Xiao's eyes were clear and cold. Coupled with his handsome and resolute face, he really had the temperament of a young master who had been banished from the world. I still want to tie the knot with my cousin. What? Qin Wupa's eyes suddenly widened. He actually stood up from the wooden carriage. It was true that Qin Wushuang was his physical body's elder sister. However, he was not the real Qin Wupa. All these years, He sat behind the scenes and controlled the situation in the Great Qin Empire. Although Qin Wuxuang was only one of his chess pieces, he would not allow others to touch her even if she was a chess piece. You don't want the empire. You want me? Qin Wuxuang's red lips trembled slightly. It was the first time she looked at Ling Xiao with a complicated gaze. Originally, she thought that Ling Xiao's actions were just to hide his ambition. However, she really did not expect that he really did not love the empire. Inexplicably, Qin Wuxuang developed a trace of curiosity towards Ling Xiao. That was how it was. Once a woman started to be curious about a man, she had already fallen into a trap. Silly sister, are you in love? I have everything that you like. For a cold and arrogant empress like Qin Wuxuang, her tiredness towards the world was already written on her face. However, why was she still sitting on this seat and worrying about it? Ling Xiao did not know the reason. However, she definitely had her own difficulties or reasons. Therefore, she definitely cared about the identity of the Great Qin Empire's emperor. This could be seen from the way she kept her guard up against Ling Xiao. Therefore, what Ling Xiao wanted to do was to repeatedly let her see a version of himself that did not love the empire and had no desires. This way, she would be suspicious and confused. Slowly, flaws would appear in her state of mind. As for whether she would fall in love with him or not, Ling Xiao did not care at all. What he cared about was, of course, Qin Wupa's luck. As the younger brother of Voldemort, it was naturally forbidden for him to have an elder sister. At the very least, how could an old spy behind the scenes be willing to see his puppet being held in the hands of someone else? With Qin Wupa's methods, it should not be difficult to control Qin Wuxuang. However, Ling Xiao didn't see any trace of a soul imprint on the latter's body. As such, it was likely that Qin Wupa was truly greedy for this elder sister of his. His woman was snatched away in such a brazen manner. Do you think Qin Wupa would go crazy? Ah, Wupu, you only saw the second level and thought that I was the first level. Actually, I was already standing on the 10th floor. What's wrong, cousin? Is this request too much? Ling Xiao didn't even look at Qin Wupa. He was just a soul cultivator with a ghost body. No matter where he came from or what his purpose was, he didn't pose much of a threat to Ling Xiao. Not to mention the ancient Pangu stone, just the bloodthirsty ghost pearl alone was enough to kill him. Of course, this required a process, or else it would truly be a waste of the dazzling luck on his body. Cousin Qin Yu, now that you've just returned to the Great Qin Empire, you're in a hurry to marry your elder sister. Isn't this inappropriate? Coldness circulated in Qin Wupa's eyes. Although he was currently somewhat afraid of Ling Xiao, it was clear that there was a supreme treasure in this kid's soul sea. Just now, he didn't use his full strength. Ling Xiao looked at most 16 or 17 years old, and his cultivation was only at the divine general level. Originally, he thought that as long as he casually used some methods, he would be able to control this little prince. However, he didn't expect, as expected of that old bastard's personal disciple. Although his strength wasn't great, he had a lot of treasures on him. Even so, a mere group of Xingzhou's geniuses was nothing worth mentioning. When this young master roamed the world, he could kill god-emperors with a single thought, and tens of thousands of slaves followed behind him. As for you, who do you think you are? Snatching my woman? How is it inappropriate? Ling Xiao raised his brows slightly. Who said it's inappropriate? At this moment, there were still a dozen courtiers standing in the hall. All of them had a trace of hesitation on their faces. They didn't dare to provoke Xiao Beifa and Ling Xiao, but Qin Wuxuang was the Great Qin Empire's empress after all. Moreover, judging from her expression, she seemed to be somewhat conflicted about this matter. The atmosphere in the hall gradually became tense, but a trace of soul light quietly lit up in Qin Wupa's eyes. Cough, cough. Immediately after, an old courtier let out a dry cough and smiled awkwardly with a terrified expression, Dragon Master, this is indeed a little inappropriate. Since you don't want to inherit the throne, even if you want to marry the Emperor, you should be the one to, Pucci. However, before the old courtier could finish his words, Ling Xiao suddenly waved his hand. A sword light suddenly tore through space, and without giving the old courtier any time to react, it directly chopped off the old courtier's head. Is there anyone else who objects? Gulp. The courtier's expressions changed drastically. Especially the smell of blood that permeated the air, it made them feel endless fear in their hearts. He was killed just like that? Suddenly, the courtiers felt that Ling Xiao was right not to sit on the throne. Otherwise, once he inherits the throne, would the courtiers in the Great Qin Empire be enough for him to kill? Damn! As expected of the Blood Hall's Dragon Master, his decisiveness in killing was even better than Xiao Beifa's. Me! Another loyal courtier took a step forward with a stern expression. But this time, before he could even open his mouth, he saw another sword light sweep past his eyes. Then, his head instantly fell to the ground. You! Plop! Instantly, 3 of the courtiers died on the spot. These 3 people's cultivation were even above Ling Xiao's. 2 of them were marquises and 1 was a general. If it was a normal fight, Ling Xiao wouldn't be able to kill them, but it would take some effort. But now, all he needed to do was to close 2 fingers, bend 3 fingers, and quickly wave them, sigh. His soul pierced through the clouds and entered the 9 heavens. As for why they were so easy to kill, since these people were in the imperial court, besides being cultivators, they were also courtiers of the Great Qin Empire. There was a saying, if the emperor wants his courtiers to die, the courtiers have no choice but to die. But at this moment, Ling Xiao's gaze wasn't on the 3 corpses. Instead, he looked at Qin Wupa with a face of ridicule. Currently, there were only a few soul cultivators in the Shengzhou. In other words, very few people knew what soul skills were. Others might not know, but how could Qin Wupa's methods escape from Ling Xiao's eyes? But even Ling Xiao was a little surprised at this moment. This Qin Wupa's controlling technique was really mysterious. It was obvious that the 3 dead people were controlled by his soul consciousness. Interesting. Ghost body? Ghost clan? Ling Xiao had only seen this clan in Xia Chen's memory. Could it be that this Qin Wupa also came from the upper realm? Ling Xiao, are you planning to kill everyone who opposes you? Qin Wushuang's pretty face turned cold. If Xiao Beifa wasn't here, she would have already attacked Ling Xiao. Although, she was also murderous and cold. But compared to Ling Xiao's ruthlessness and tyranny, she was really lacking. You are indeed my woman. This is the so-called telepathy, right? That's right, Wushuang. If you kill everyone who opposes you, won't everyone agree to our matter? Ling Xiao smiled gently. His bright eyes were pure, completely different from the bloodthirsty person just now. You are ridiculous. If everyone in the world opposes you, are you going to kill everyone in the world? Qin Wushuang's eyes trembled. She suddenly remembered the rumors she heard on the way to the Great Zhou dynasty. According to the rumors, Ling Xiao moved mountains and killed hundreds of thousands of people. Maybe he really dared to kill everyone in the world. Inexplicably, Qin Wushuang's emotions became even more complicated. He doesn't want the world and wants to kill everyone, just to marry me? Does he love me, or is he toying with me? You. Cough cough. Qin Wupa's face turned pale. Especially when he saw the confusion in Qin Wushuang's eyes. He felt an indescribable hatred. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth unconsciously. Wupa, are you okay? Seeing this scene, the confusion in Qin Wushuang's eyes disappeared. She quickly reached out to support Qin Wupa, who was about to fall. Chapter 467. We'll talk about this in the future. Help me take a look at Wupa's injuries first. Qin Wushuang looked coldly at Ling Xiao. However, before the latter could step forward, Qin Wupa shook his head furiously. No need, sister. I'll be fine after some rest. F***ck. Although Qin Wupa didn't know if Ling Xiao's slap was intentional or if Ling Xiao was truly knowledgeable. However, if he were to be slapped twice more, he would probably die on the spot. Even now, he was still in a daze. All right, I'll send you to rest. Qin Wushuang pushed Qin Wupa towards the back of the palace. At this moment, Ling Xiao did not stop them. However, he did not hide the coldness in his eyes. Originally, he came to the great Qin Empire to conquer Qin Wushuang and take the empire into his hands. However, it seemed that this journey had become much more interesting. Dragon Master, you see, now that you're back, shouldn't you change your name back? Among the officials, there was a kind-looking elder who bowed respectfully. In any empire, there were always some officials who did not fear death and were loyal to their master. It was obvious that this old man was the type who did not fear death. Oh? Why should I change it back? Don't you think that the name Ling Xiao is much more domineering than Qin Yu? Ling Xiao smiled coldly. The old official's face turned gloomy. Dragon Master, you are the young master of the great Qin Empire. How can you have a different surname? This is ridiculous. Just as Ling Xiao turned his head and looked at the old official, the latter's body trembled, and he almost fell to the ground. In the blink of an eye, the panic on his face had completely disappeared, and it had turned into a wisp of determination. So that's how it is. What you said makes sense. Ling Xiao nodded slightly, and the old official heaved a sigh of relief. However, before he could be happy for too long, he heard the youth in front of him suddenly say, "Then change the name of the empire. From today onwards, the great Qin Empire will be renamed the Ling Empire. Whoever opposes it will have their entire family executed. I'll leave this matter to you." With that, Ling Xiao no longer paid any attention to the ministers and strode out of the hall. While what? Hearing this, the entire hall fell into a dead silence. Everyone's faces were filled with indescribable shock and fear. Even the old official who had opened his mouth slapped himself in the face. "General Xiao, go and call one of Qin Wushuang's female servants." Ling Xiao sat in the Blood Dragon Hall. There was no one around. Soon, Xiao Beifa led a red-clothed maidservant in. "Greetings, Dragon Master. Get up, come here." Ling Xiao casually waved his hand, and the door to the hall instantly closed. The young girl walked in front of Ling Xiao while trembling with fear, feeling a little nervous in her heart. But the moment she knelt down, Ling Xiao grabbed her chin and pulled her in front of him. Then, the world suddenly plunged into darkness. "Take care of her." Ling Xiao casually threw the maidservant in the hall. From beginning to end, Xiao Beifa did not ask anything. He dragged the maidservant, who had lost her mind, and walked out of the hall. No wonder Qin Wushuang loved this hidden little brother so much. So it was like this. Ling Xiao raised a smile on the corner of his mouth. If he wanted to kill Qin Wushuang happily, he would have to start with Qin Wushuang. Ling Xiao already knew the reason why this empress cared so much about the throne. 10 years ago, the entire Jinan mansion was massacred. Only Qin Wushuang and his sister survived by luck. Qin Wushuang was born with a lack of a soul. His body was weak and sickly. If it wasn't for his sister's care, he most likely would have died. But it was also on that day that Qin Wushuang seemed to have been enlightened. Not only did his cultivation increase greatly, even his actions became decisive and ruthless. Not only did the Jinan mansion not decline, under her leadership, it prospered day by day. In the end, when the great Qin was in turmoil, Qin Wushuang took the opportunity and sat on the throne. Everything seemed to be a coincidence. However, the murderer of the Jinan mansion had yet to be found. Qin Wushuang cared so much about the throne because he wanted to use this opportunity to find the real murderer. Secondly, he wanted to use the fortune of the western border to help his little brother become the ruler of the world. He wanted to be worshipped by the people and extend his life. The origin of this saying was rumored to be the guidance of an elite warrior. However, in Ling Zhao's eyes, it more or less smelled of a conspiracy. If Qin Wushuang did not have a ghost body, did not hide his strength, or did not have fortune, Ling Xiao would not suspect him. However, it seemed that he had helpers in the imperial palace. It could even be his sole slave. After all, from Xia Chen's memory, Ling Xiao already knew that this clan specialized in soul attack. They could easily capture the soul-absorbing seed seal. Only with Qin Wushuang's strength, most likely ordinary Emperor God warriors would not be his opponent. If so, what was he worried about? The holy sect? Or an enemy from his previous life? Originally, the people of the Ghost Clan were not from the Shring state. Therefore, this Qin Wushuang was most likely reborn or possessed. However, since he had appeared in this world, he must be related to the Shring state. However, a member of the Ghost Clan, could it be? Suddenly, a soul light flashed in Ling Zhao's eyes and the bloodthirsty ghost pearl appeared before him. Could it be Xia Chen? Deep inside the Qin palace, inside a magnificent ancient palace, this place was heavily guarded by imperial guards. Currently, inside the palace, Qin Wushuang looked nervously at Qin Wushuang who was lying on the bed. There was some sorrow between his brows. If it were not for this little brother, most likely she would have left the secular world and wholeheartedly searched for the enemy who killed her father. Their birth mother had died of illness when they were young. That year, Qin Wushuang was only 10 years old and Qin Wushuang had just turned 1 year old. Therefore, since young, the two of them had grown up with their father. However, 10 years ago, their father, a fifth-stage emperor god, had mysteriously died in his bedroom. Although his body was unharmed, his divine soul had been destroyed. It was extremely strange. Not only that, hundreds of living creatures in the Zhennan mansion had also died in such a state. In these years, Qin Wushuang had searched the entire Great Qin Empire but could not find a single clue. It was as if the person who had slaughtered the Zhennan mansion had disappeared into thin air. If it were not for the fact that he was worried about his little brother, Qin Wushuang would not care about the state affairs. "Wushuang, are you feeling better?" Qin Wushuang gave a light sigh and reached out to pull the cotton blanket on the bed. "I am fine, sister." A trace of gloominess flashed across Qin Wushuang's face. "Only, sister, are you really going to agree to that Ling Zhao's request?" "How could it be?" A trace of panic flashed across Qin Wushuang's eyes. Currently, she felt somewhat conflicted. This young man's methods were terrifying enough. Now, he was in charge of the Blood Dragon Hall. If she could borrow his hand to unify the west border, perhaps she could solve Wushuang's illness as soon as possible. However, inexplicably, Qin Wushuang felt that this young man was very dangerous. This feeling of being out of control made her somewhat hesitant. After all, if she was not careful, she might lose both the state and her body. However, Wushuang with him, perhaps we can complete the task of unifying the west border faster. By that time your illness, you dare! Suddenly, Qin Wushuang shouted angrily and sat up from the bed. He stared at Qin Wushuang with a gloomy gaze. Chapter 468. Wu Po, what happened to you? Qin Wushuang looked at Qin Wushuang who suddenly sat up with a surprised expression. For a moment, she even felt that the person before her was not her little brother. In Qin Wushuang's eyes, although Qin Wushuang had a weak body, he was a gentle and optimistic young man. But just now, what was with the resentment in his eyes? Nothing. Sister, you can't marry that young man. I suspect he is related to father's death. Qin Wushuang took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in his heart. In the end, he still cared about Qin Wushuang. After all, this elder sister had been taking good care of him since he was young. For ordinary puppets, he only needed to place a soul seal and he could control them completely. Although there was a risk of being exposed, no one would notice as long as he was careful. However, he did not make a move on Qin Wushuang. In the beginning, it was because he was not strong enough. Later, he suddenly could not do it. Originally, Qin Wushuang thought that this reluctance was because it was unnecessary. Qin Wushuang had always listened to him. Why should he take the risk to place a seal on her? But now, this sudden appearance of Ling Xiao made him understand. Perhaps, in these 30 years of living together, he seemed to have fallen in love with this cold and heartless sister who gave all her warmth to him. That kind of warm and meticulous care caused his heart, which had been cold for hundreds of years, to gradually crack. The people of the Ghost Clan had always been treacherous. However, it did not mean that they had no feelings. After planting the soul seal, Qin Wushuang would no longer be himself, but a puppet. This way, he would lose a lot of fun. As for unifying the west border and helping him extend his life, it was an excuse that Qin Wushuang had directed and acted out. His goal was to guide Qin Wushuang to conquer the world for him and destroy that person's descendants. Besides, he already knew that there were very few soul martial artists in the Holy Land. And his identity was indeed special. Once exposed, with his current strength, it would be difficult for him to survive in the human territory, not to mention returning to his own world to take revenge. Hiding behind others and controlling the world was the self-cultivation of a demonic genius of the Ghost Clan. It was rumored that a predecessor of the Ghost Clan had used his soul to control a world without anyone noticing. Ling Xiao? Humph, even if you have a treasure to protect your soul, it is just a matter of waving my hand to kill you. What? Qin Wushuang's face slightly froze. Spiritual qi surged out of his body almost uncontrollably. Wushuang, how did you know? Sister, you forgot. Back then, when father was killed, his divine soul had disappeared. Today, when that palace maid was killed, her blood soul had also been sucked dry by someone. However, it just so happened that right after that Qin you arrived, demons appeared in the Qin palace. Don't you think? Don't think this is too much of a coincidence? Qin Wupa sighed softly. His eyes were filled with worry. But he was clearly in the palace. Why did he? Qin Wushuang frowned and showed a confused expression. She had always believed Qin Wupa's words. However, today's matter was too strange. She couldn't understand Ling Xiao's intentions. Sister, if Qin Yu was the real culprit behind his father's death, he must have a purpose for coming to the great Qin Imperial Palace. But before that, he must try to hide his identity. With Xiao Beifa's strength, what kind of evil could escape from under his nose? Obviously, there must be something fishy going on. Qin Wushuang shook his head. His tone became more serious. Look, didn't he succeed? If even you can't figure it out, then, in the future, if there are demons in the great Qin Palace, who will suspect him? Qin Wushuang's beautiful eyes narrowed. She nodded blankly. Wushuang, you are smart. You can always see the problem so clearly. Sister, we have to be careful. Since Qin Yu put on such a show, he must have a motive. I suspect that there are other demons behind him. Sooner or later, they will make a move on us. At that time, it will be hard for the great Qin Palace to not fall into his hands. Qin Wushuang snorted coldly. His face was full of arrogance. A mere ant from the first level dares to play tricks with me? When I roamed the world, all the demons in the upper realm had to bow down to me. In terms of scheming, I, Qin Wushuang, am not targeting anyone. Everyone in the Xingzhou is my younger brother. Hiss? Why do these words sound so familiar? I know, sister. You must be thinking that he doesn't care about the throne. Haha, sister, have you thought about why he wants to marry you? Wushuang, you mean, a man's mouth is a liar? In this world, other than your family, you can't trust anyone else. That Qin Yu is just worried that the great Qin Palace will fall into chaos. That's why he chose the safest way to rule the great Qin Palace. If you marry him, it will save you a lot of trouble. If you don't marry him, I'm afraid that us siblings. Qin Wushuang sighed deeply. However, there was a hidden smile at the corner of his eyes. Qin Yu, no, I should call you Ling Xiao now, right? Don't you want to marry Qin Wushuang? Dream on. Wushuang. I only trust you. However, now that Xiao Beifa has sided with him, what should we do? Qin Wushuang didn't know how his little brother came up with such a profound lesson. A man's mouth is a liar? Could it be that his little brother had experienced it before? That shouldn't be the case. Sister, don't be anxious. He has the blood dragon guards. It's not like we don't have any trump cards. However, looking at the situation, it's better to strike first and gain the upper hand. Wushuang, let's wait a bit more. It's too obvious to kill him now. Once the blood dragon guards discover it, I'm afraid that the great Qin palace will fall into chaos. Let me think about it. Qin Wushuang sighed lightly. Her brows were filled with coldness. Qin Wushuang had lived in the palace for a long time. Thus, she didn't know how frightening Ling Xiao was. She had personally witnessed that youth beheading divine emperors with a single slash. Furthermore, what caused Qin Wushuang to fear the most was that youth seemed to possess the ability to travel through space. Such a person, one should either not provoke him or kill him in a single strike. Otherwise, there would definitely be no end of troubles. Sister! Seeing the hesitation in Qin Wushuang's eyes, Qin Wushuang's expression immediately grew gloomy. If we continue to wait, are you not afraid that he'll kill us? It's all right, Wushuang. I'll first pretend to agree to his request and set up the marriage contract to stabilize him. Then we can slowly plan. Qin Wushuang's beautiful eyes were overflowing with coldness. The hatred of killing one's father was absolutely irreconcilable. After listening to Qin Wushuang's analysis, she also felt that something was wrong with Ling Xiao. However, if she wanted to kill him, she couldn't be careless and hasty. She had to come up with a detailed and meticulous plan. For example, she could drug him on the day of the wedding, stab him in the waist when he least expected it, or even, as long as she could avenge the Zhenan mansion and her father, even if she had to sacrifice herself, she wouldn't even frown. It was said that when a man was the happiest, he would be the most relaxed. Thus, if she wanted to kill a young demon who could travel through space at will, she had to choose the safest method. Chapter 469. Sister, what did you say? Qin Wupa's expression froze almost instantly. When he saw the seriousness on Qin Wushuang's face, he almost condensed the soul seal and controlled her completely. With Qin Wupa's current strength, almost no one below the God Emperor realm could be his opponent. Even God Emperors, those who did not guard against him, could be easily dealt with. Only, for someone like Xiao Beifa, who had been killing for years and comprehended the Tao laws, or a high-grade God Emperor, it was extremely risky to control him. This was the reason why he appeared before outsiders as a piece of trash. Regardless of who it was, when they saw an elite warrior of the same level as them, they would be on guard. However, when you saw a pig, an ant that you could crush with a stretch of your hand, would you be afraid? Of course not. This was the so-called pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. Only, Qin Wupa was pretending to be a pig, not a coward. How could he be willing to lose his woman? Wupa, don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Just focus on recuperating and don't worry about anything else. Qin Wushuang smiled gently. In her eyes, as long as her brother could be healthy and happy, it would be her only motivation to live. As for Ling Xiao, she still had to probe him and figure out his background. Then, she would think of a way to get rid of him. Or else, the risk would be too great. A young man who could make Ning Tiance and Qiao Yunli bow, how could he not have some tricks up his sleeve? Before Qin Wupa could speak again, Qin Wushuang had already covered him with the blanket and turned to walk out of the palace. Sister, Qin Wupa gritted his teeth and the soul light in his eyes surged violently. At the same time, inside his soul palace, Qin Wupa arrived in a flash and stood with his hands behind his back. He looked coldly at the blood-colored palace before him. This palace was 300 meters tall and overflowed with blood light. Ghost patterns covered it and revealed a heart-palpitating evil. For ordinary first-grade god emperors, their soul palaces were only 300 meters tall. Clearly, the strength of this ghost clan member's divine soul was far beyond that of a god emperor. This was what he relied on and where he had the confidence to pretend to be a pig. When Qin Wupa's figure walked into the palace, the world before his eyes suddenly became clear. At the end of the blood-colored palace, 9 stone pillars were arranged neatly. Among them, there seemed to be figures standing on 5 stone pillars. Their bodies were bound by blood chains and appear extremely strange. But what was even more terrifying was that the aura emanating from these 5 souls was actually at the Emperor realm. When they were alive, they were definitely experts who could intimidate the heavens and the earth. Da-da-da. Hearing the sound of footsteps, one of the old men slowly raised his head. His wrinkled face clearly flashed with resentment and anger. Hee Dan Lao, what do you think? Qin Wupa walked in front of the old man with a sinister smile on his face. The latter snorted coldly and closed his eyes. Old Dan, why haven't you said anything yet? I know that you've sealed the spiritual flame in Qin Yu's body. As long as you're willing to tell me how to seal the spiritual flame, I'll definitely set you free. What do you think? A cold glint flashed across Qin Wupa's eyes. The old man in front of him was naturally the famous Pill Emperor of the Great Qin Empire. At that time, during the incident in the Qin Palace, he sealed the spiritual flame in Qin Yu's body with all his spiritual energy, but his own level fell to the Paong stage. Originally, the Pill Emperor had planned to find a place to hide and recover his cultivation with spirit pills. But he didn't expect the enemy to find him so quickly. Nonsense, how could he not be quick? With Qin Wupa's divine soul techniques, it was extremely easy for him to find out Qin Yu's whereabouts. As for the rebellion of the various court officials, it was naturally planned by him. First, he killed his own father and refined him into a slave. Then, he used the several hundred living beings of the South guarding Prince's mansion as a sacrifice to break through to the first stage of the God King stage. Secretly, Qin Wupa used his soul control technique to control several court officials of the Great Qin Empire. Using them as bait, he planned this rebellion. As for that spiritual flame of heaven and earth, it could be said to be a pleasant surprise. Such a divine item, even in his realm, it could be said to be a precious treasure. What was originally a flawless plan had a flaw in the end. The Qin Palace was in turmoil. The Pill Emperor, that old bastard, actually received the news and sent Qin Yu away from the Qin dynasty. However, what caused Qin Wupa to be pleasantly surprised was that this old bastard actually knew how to fuse the spiritual flame into his body. The people of the Ghost Clan had extremely weak bodies to begin with. There was nothing they could do about it. The Great Tao was fair and balanced. The innate talent of the Divine Soul caused every expert of the Ghost Clan to be proficient in Divine Soul slaughtering. However, it just so happened that among the 10,000 clans, the Ghost Clan's body was the weakest. However, if one were to be able to fuse with a spiritual flame of heaven and earth, then one's body would definitely reach a frightening level. Qin Yu, an ant from the lower realm. 3 years ago, he was only at the Paong stage or even lower. How much stronger could his body be compared to his own? Indescribably, Qin Wupa felt that this was a fortune bestowed upon him by the heavens. Merely, what caused him to feel strange was that after Qin Yu left, it was like a clay ox entering the sea. There was no longer any news of him. In these 3 years, Qin Wupa had used countless methods to force the Pill Emperor to tell him the whereabouts of Qin Yu and the method to fuse with the spiritual flame. Who would have thought that not only did this old bastard not relent, he even placed a barrier in his own soul sea. Once his soul was forcibly searched, his soul sea would immediately shatter. Needless to say, alchemists had a lot of methods. In your dreams, sooner or later, you will be exterminated. The Pill Emperor's expression was indifferent. He was not moved in the slightest. In these 3 years, he had personally witnessed Qin Wupa's strange methods. Especially the stone pillar that bound him, it was even more bizarre and evil. Not only could it seal his soul power, it also seemed to be able to devour his cultivation to nourish Qin Wupa's soul palace. In a short 3 years, Qin Wupa had stepped into the 5th stage of the Divine King realm from the 1st stage. As for the remaining 4 soul shadows, they were all Emperor God experts that he had trapped in this place. Ha ha ha, old bastard, do you really think that just because you placed a seal in your soul sea, I can't do anything to you? To tell you the truth, the Divine Codex that I cultivate is a classic from the upper realm, the treasure of the Ghost Clan. Wait until I step into the Emperor realm, I will be able to break your little tricks with a wave of my hand. At that time, Qin Wupa smiled coldly. The entire Blood Palace seemed to be filled with ghostly shadows. It was extremely sinister. Then you'll have to be alive to break through to the God Emperor realm first. Pill Elder's eyes narrowed. A sense of helplessness appeared in his heart. Counting the time, it had already been 3 years. According to the plan, Xiao Beifa should have already led his troops back to the capital. Back then, the reason why the Qin Emperor sent Qin Yu out of the palace was because the heavenly official had predicted that the great Qin would face such a calamity. As long as the Blood Dragon Temple was not destroyed, Xiao Yu should still have the chance to defy the heavens and change his fate. After all, according to the Qin Emperor, Qin Yu was the hope of the Qin clan's prosperity. He was a person that was protected by the heavens and earth. This point could be seen from his physique, and the matter of him fusing with the spiritual fire. This Qin Wupa was very powerful. His methods and scheming were all monstrous. However, as long as Xiao Yu fused with that exceptional ominous fire and took control of the Blood Dragon Temple, it was not impossible for him to fight against him. The spiritual fire of heaven and earth was extremely strong. It was the best treasure to restrain such devils. Laughable, he actually wanted to take that spiritual fire for himself. Wasn't he afraid of being burned to death? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.